After a lengthy period away for the winter months, we are back with the Michelin Le Mans Cup for round one of what is set to be a very intense and intriguing season for these certainly Le Mans wannabes across two different categories, LMP3 and GT3, with a couple of races along the way that will take them to the 24 hours of Le Mans during race week. Two races as part of the Road to Le Mans to look forward to, therefore, later on in June. But after here in Spain, or Catalan if you prefer, we take trips to Paul Ricard, to Spa, to Mugello and to Portimao, with one round missed of the European Le Mans Series. That is the first trip to Italy and to Imola. So we don't go to Imola, we go to Le Mans instead. But we kick off with an hour and 50 minutes worth of racing for all of these cars in a split grid for a slightly later than planned beginning to their championship, only by about 10 minutes. We're due off at 10 to 6 local time, and we've just ticked around at 5:30. So pleasant evening as the sun just starts to move slightly closer to the horizon. But none of these drivers will be signing off just yet for their Saturday, because everything's been geared towards getting the car qualified well, which we brought to you live earlier on, and now being raced well across two separate stints and that mandatory pit stop partway through. Johnny Palmer and Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com to bring you coverage of the championship all the way through the season. Senan Fielding's clearly expecting a bit of rain as he holds an umbrella above his head. He's British and he's from Chesterfield. It rains a lot there, so even though we've got a wall-to-wall blue sky, there's always the chance of a sprinkling of rain. I don't think it's likely this evening though, Graham.
No, it's been pretty warm here. It's warmest we've seen all week. We have been on site for the whole of the week with prologue testing action for the European Le Mans Series Monday and Tuesday, the prologue for the Michelin Le Mans Cup on Wednesday, and now into this race meeting and the start of the season with an hour and 50 minutes of who knows what to come this evening. 4 hours of European Le Mans Series season opener tomorrow, so stay with us tomorrow for that. But what we've got here, Johnny, is a whole lot of new again. New faces, new teams, smattering of new cars as well. And in GT3, it is a Ferrari 1-2 and a new look to the Iron Dames in the Lamborghini, with two new Iron Dames in position 3 in GT3.
Yeah, so we're keeping a keen eye on Celia Martin and Karen Gaillard as to how they go, not only in this season, but then further on in their Iron Dames career. But it was Matt Kurzajewski in the GT3s for a Ferrari number 51, an AF Corsa, the car he shares with Alessandro Balzan, who took pole position. Kurzajewski and fellow AF Corsa driver of the Ferrari, Custodio Toledo, were switching backwards and forwards. Toledo had the provisional pole for a long time before the American driver Kurzajewski sort of pounced at the key moment to post his 141.856 and give him pole by only 66 thousandths of a second. It was nip and tuck throughout the 15 minutes.
Indeed it was. Cracking couple of qualifying sessions. The one outlier, if you like, is the car right at the back of the grid, Johnny, because with a spin into the gravel, the Edex Sport number 28 car, with Dino Lenardi due to start that car, will start behind the GT3 cars. So it's going to be 27 LMP3 cars at the head of this grid. Then we get into the 7 GT3 cars lined up here. That will, we hope, get to double figures by the time we get to the next round at Paul Ricard. And then the number 28 car, 28 car, which happens also to be the 17 car is the 28th car in LMP3. I'll read this time on screen properly once, at least this afternoon.
Well, the other interesting thing for me is that, yes, the top 27 cars are all LMP3s. There's going to be nobody, though, in the grid spot alongside the P4 racing car of Andrew Ferguson, who also had difficulties during qualifying. So there's going to be a gap. Not a split start, but nevertheless, and it's not technically a row between the back of the LMP3s and the GTs, but there is going to be nobody plugging that 27 times 2, 40, whatever grid slot it is.
Yep, 14th row.
The outside of the 14th row will have to remain vacant. And it's going to be tempting, I think, for Gustavo Toledo to fill that gap, but he's going to have to hold back and make sure that Kurzajewski is dictating the pace for the slightly separate GT3 field.
So let's see circuit management here from the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, together with the management of Le Mans Endurance Management, Fred Leclerc, and the president of the ACO, Pierre Fillon, working our way up through the top 10 in LMP3. This is the 97 Cool Racing car, David Drew and Adrian Chiller. A couple of established names in LMP3 racing, but there's a lot of new faces and new names to conjure with, and a lot of unknowns therefore in terms of one lap and sustained pace, and for that matter patience, as they suit up with Cool Racing. And alongside them is going to be another returning team and another returning crew, because that is going to be the 77 Team Tour car, which will once again welcome, and there is the 77 car, Odin Gudmundsson from Iceland and Colin Noble, not from Iceland, aboard the 77 car. And prepared by High-Class Racing from Denmark, but based literally across the road from this circuit here in Barcelona. But good to have them back, and I think they could well be contenders this year for some pretty significant finishes. Odin Gudmundsson finding pace, finding consistency, and that is the key. Consistency and patience.
I want Colin Noble to have had a brief spell in the supermarket Iceland now, maybe as a college job or something. So one from Iceland and the other one worked in Iceland for a bit. I bet Colin has never done that, sadly. But, you know, we could change his CV when he's not looking.
We could try it.
So we're a few minutes away. 13 minutes away from the race start, Graham. A real tragedy, though, that hit the paddock earlier on in the weekend.
Beautifully observed, but it's silence in respect of Gerhard Freundorfer, team manager of the Proton Huber effort that should have been racing here for the first time in GT3. And Gerhard very tragically lost his life in an accident in the paddock earlier this week, and you can see some of the faces there that people were both close to him in terms of the friendship group there is, this family of endurance racing, but also people who were close by when that awful accident happened. CD Sport here in 6th place on the grid, and familiar colours, familiar team, unfamiliar driver crew. 5-minute board is now being shown, Johnny.
Yeah, when I arrived in the paddock earlier on in the weekend, you could certainly feel just the whole paddock shaken by that incident.
Absolutely.
But most unexpected as well, and thoughts with Gerhard's family, of course, for the forthcoming weeks and months. And we are thinking of you certainly moving forward with the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year. Absolutely.
We hope that the team will return and play the part that he would have wanted them to play. Absolutely understandable they are not here this weekend. Our thoughts with all of them, the extended Huber Racing group and the Proton competition group. Tragically, while that accident actually was happening, I was talking to Christian Reed in the paddock about this joint effort and asked him about the link between the two, and his answer was, we're all close family friends, and that makes it all the sadder that we're having to talk about a true tragedy amongst what we all regard as being a working family, an endurance racing family. It's often talked about that way, and it's when you have moments like this that it feels that way. And it's horrible that actually in some ways this is when it's the rawest that it becomes that reality. He'd want us to talk about racing, so let's do that. Third on the grid, High Class Racing's number 20 car, and their first effort at the European Le Mans Series in LMP3 under their own brand. And so the number 20 car, Jens Moller, it is the experienced bronze ranked driver with GMB Motorsport most recently at the Michelin Le Mans Cup in the GT3 class. Team Virage, winners last year, of course, and they have made the front row of this grid. Jamie Falvey, it is, aboard the number 44 car. But whilst we've got part of the established order, albeit with a new driver lineup, and it is Jamie aboard that car, it is one of our newcomer teams this year that will be the pole position car. This is it, Johnny. It is a Duqueine D08 from RSGP.
Remind drivers of the starting procedure. All cars to come through the starting grid in 2 parallel lines through the grid boxes painting, and take the start only once lights are gone off.
Gwen Boursier, the race director of this championship for this year, and an extra reminder that as you come out of the final corner with the leading car departing to drivers right into pit road, you have to get through the grid hatchings.
It will be 2 formation laps. It will be 2 formation laps.
And that changed a couple of seasons ago to echo the way that the World Endurance Championship and the ELMS take their starts as well. We haven't had a real great change in conditions from qualifying through to the race, but it just gives everybody ample time to certainly take in the track and any minor changes that may have happened, but more importantly to try and build tyre temperature and a little bit of brake temperature here and there as well. But you have to be able to do that safely to warm the Michelin tyres up in readiness for, well, just under an hour's action on this particular set, and then the following set will be bolted onto the cars. Here's Fabien Michel then, his time of 136.344 to start from pole position, ahead of Jamie Falvey, as we've mentioned. Then Jens Moller and Oscar Bitter, third and fourth in their high-class racing and Team Virage cars. It'll be James Swetnam in another Cool Racing car alongside CD Sport, and the entry there, Christian Short. Then Alden Gudmundsson and Adrian Schiller for Team Tour and Cool Racing. Into Europole competitions, Alexander Bukantsov to start ninth alongside Britain Racing's Ben Stone. Racing Spirit of Le Mans, Christophe Lapierre in 11th position alongside Pieter de Curtens for Hegeli by T2 Racing. Then Tim Cressit making the move from GT3 to LMP3 over the winter period, joined by Shahan Sarkissian of Lebanon. It's Tony Wells for Nielsen Racing and Romano Ricci for M Racing. Breton Racing's second entry for Giorgio Kolovos is joined by Sylvain Guintoli of Stella Motorsport. Horst Feldmeier and Clement Moreno come next ahead of Julien Lemoyne for ANS.
30 seconds on the grid, 30 seconds board
for Rinaldi
on the
Racing.
grid.
Mark van der Snel for Moore Motorsport and Steve Parrow in his Rinaldi Racing mount. Roman Iannetta for MV2S Racing is joined by ANS Motorsport's Julien Lemoyne, and then it's Stefan Aust. And then it is Roman Iannetta and George Nakas ahead of Andrew Ferguson. Then we're into the GT3 field for Matthew Kurzewski and Custodio Toledo, who we've talked a lot about, those two Ferraris, starting ahead of Celia Martin's Lamborghini for Ryan Dames, Andrew Gilbert, Darren Malkin, Frederick Jose and Nick Jones. And the final car on the grid must be started by Dino Lunardi, because the 17 EDEC Sport car did not qualify at all, and therefore the fastest driver of the two has to begin the race. That won't have been their strategy, I'm sure, at EDEC Sport, but they'll have to wait until they can plug in Patrice Lafargue to bring it to the checkered flag.
Away they go on the first of 2 formation laps. Behind, it was the Cooper, I think, the leading car for these formation laps. Or is it the GTR? Either way, we're hoping for a good clean start. Tough to get a clean start here at Barcelona. Pretty tight and technical stuff at the start of this lap when everybody's at maximum attack and very close together. So wise heads, calm heads, patient heads required to get this big field of 35 cars underway and through. So, as Johnny said at the top of the show, it will be the first of 2 formation laps. It is indeed the Cupra. Pride of Spain, of course, Cupra. And a successful motorsport mark, of course, in touring car racing and Formula E.
You'd have thought it.
There you go.
But yes, the sporting brand Cupra just used to be a make of, or model of Seat, and then that became the sporting arm, a little bit like Abarth is to Fiat, and Cupra possibly more popular on the road these days than the Seat brand, but there are strong ties there, and they are a sporty
let's try to not create gaps which are too big, please, ladies and gentlemen.
So the instruction to close the gaps, just getting a little bit too wide for Gwen Boursiers' liking. As down at Team Virage, they'll be keeping a keen eye on Jamie Falvey to make sure that he doesn't go too early, because the pace will be dictated by Fabien Michel's R-Ace GP car, but that's in just over a lap's time.
So you're telling me a little earlier this afternoon, I know Gwen Boursier as the race director this season of the Asian Le Mans Series, but prior to that, F2, and prior to that, team manager in Formula E for the Audi factory team.
Yeah, so he's studied motorsport, been involved in motor racing from both sides of the race direction, I suppose. He's been a competitor, he's been a team manager, organising virtually everything to get the cars.
Okay, let's try to close those gaps.
So he knows
let's
nonsense
try to
when he hears
form a
it.
pack of cars. Thank you very much.
But now very much ensconced in officialdom, so we'll have had discussions with race directors and race control members as a team manager, and now he's on the other end of the radio.
T10, this is the moment where you start assuming your grid position.
Almost
you start
back-to-back
assuming your grid
action
position.
at the European Le Mans Series race meeting here in Barcelona, and you're anywhere close to any of the race meetings later this season. Of course, you can have a look at the schedule on the European Le Mans Series website. Do come along and bring the family. Ticket prices are remarkably affordable in the modern era, and access is amazing. Lots of cars, lots of racing, varied racing at that.
Okay, let's close these gaps, please, ladies and
Stunning
gentlemen.
tracks
Close the
around Europe
gaps
this season and every season, and we would love to see you there. So please do take a look, have a look at what's available, and look at how to get there, and you will be very welcome here at Trackside. We've got a big crowd here in Barcelona, and they've stuck with us all through what has been a pretty sweltering day as well. They've gradually worked their way back in the grandstand into the shade rather than the sunshine, and fewer grandstands available for them at the moment, with the major works underway to prepare for
T10,
Formula 1.
Assuming your grid position.
About to get
T10,
their first
start assuming your grid
Michelin
position.
Le Mans Cup race of the season underway.
A little bit of a puff of tyre smoke there from Fabien Michel's car as he was accelerating towards the lead car, and maybe an extra chance to pump some heat through the wheels and into the tyres there from the brakes. Also trying to squirm from left to right as much as possible, but of course once the cars are instructed to be side by side behind the lead car,
to assume grid
that
position,
is when the
please.
weaving must
Two
end.
clear lines, parallel, two clear lines.
Two clear lines being indicated to
Some
all of the
cars
drivers.
are a bit slow to close the gap. Close the gaps. Two lines exiting T10.
Still a bit too much to ask for if you want it done at the exit of turn 10, Gren. I know that was the instruction from driver's briefing, but now it's much tidier at the sharp end of the field as the lead car will depart, and now trying to avoid wheel arch banging are Fabien Michel and Jamie Falvey. We're at the start of a brand new campaign then for the Michelin Le Mans Cup for 2024. There's an hour and 50 minutes ahead of all these drivers and their co-drivers. One pit stop required as we go too. And we're racing for a brand new season, the Michelin Le Mans Cup, live here from the circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya, 2x2, absolutely side by side into the first corner.
Virage car goes through into the lead. It was almost three wide with the two Virage cars to the outside of the R-Ace GP. Duquesne, but it's now the Duquesne in the Ligier sandwich. Trouble at the back of the pack, the 84 cars involved, as is the Rebellion Tributes, Breton Racing 62.
Well, they started right together on the grid. That's Julien Lemoine and Kolovos, I reckon, who have fallen to the rear of the field. Yes, Giorgio Kolovos and Julien Lemoine in the 62 and the 84 cars, respectively. Everybody else, I think, managed to scamper their way through that first corner incident. Not quite as big as the one we had 12 months ago, thankfully. And there are still yellow flags being displayed at the first corner. but amazing that we managed to get at least 35 or so cars through there. No, fewer than that, 33 cars through there.
I think they both are getting away. Yellow has been removed, so they're either on track, and they are. I can see them on the tracker circulating. So 35 cars underway. We'll wait to see whether or not there is any damage to those or others that needs attendance. But meantime, at the front of this race, it is Jamie Falvey in the Virage 44 car that is getting away here and is second plus ahead of Fabian Michel, who has now got Jens Reiner Muller up into third place in the 20 high-class racing car. He's gone by Oscar Bitter. We've got yellows at turn 10 now. And that is the 50 car, the Reiter Engineering entered car.
For Horst Felbermayr, who's doing the opening stints in the very familiar Felbermayr livery. Now stacking up nicely as they head across the line and down towards the first corner. There's going to be an overtake here, which is the number 13 car gaining a spot on Christophe Lapierre. So that's Romano Ricci slicing his way through the order and up to 7th position. So Jamie Falvey will lead the first lap of the brand new season from Fabian Michel. One Ligier versus one Duquesne, and there's 1.4 seconds between those two cars. Then Jens Moller in the high-class racing Ligier heads Oscar Bitter and James Swetnam for Team Virage and Cool Racing. In the GT3s, it's still Matthew Kezajewski who has retained his lead from the pole position, and he's ahead of Custodia Toledo, a man originally from Brazil, been doing a lot of his racing in North America though.
Yeah, that GT3 order was mixed up by the chaos with the two spinning LMP3s. The two leading cars in GT3 did get through that without problems, but it's a third Ferrari and a third Andrew Gilbert in the first of the two Kessel Racing cars, with Celia Martin having dropped back just a little in the order. The loser there appears to be the Stella Motorsport Audi that's dropped to the back of the GT3 field from 4th on the grid. As the CD Sport car gets under the rear wing of the number 7 Nielsen Racing car.
So in and out of the final corner will go those jostling cars for the order just inside the top 15. Tony Wells from Nielsen Racing ahead of the number 2 CD Sport car. One of the CD Sport machines just jinking out of line there. That may well have been Christian Short actually. The red and yellow liveried cars. As the two Ferraris first and second.
It's Shahan Sarkisian, he's taken that place.
On Tony Wells?
On Tony Wells.
Right, so that will give the Lebanese driver 13th position. And here's the race leader, Jamie Falvey, with more of a gap back to Fabian Michel than I would have expected. Remember, they were split by not a lot in qualifying, but Michel had put the time in earlier in that 15-minute session, and RHGP could afford actually to sit out a few laps. They parked the car for a brief time, and then when Jamie started to turn up the wick, rejoined, but actually didn't need to set a quicker time.
Jamie's escape, by the way, has been halted at this point because Fabian Michel has slightly dropped Jens Muller and is now off in pursuit, and pretty rapid pursuit of Jamie Falvey. The gap had been about 1.5 seconds, now under a second. So we've got a real battle on our hands here for the lead of this race. Jamie Falvey for Team Virage, Fabian Michel for RSGP, high-class racing, Jens Reiner Muller, Oscar Bitter. Under 3 seconds between those top 4. Then it's James Swetnam, Alexander Bekantsov, Christophe Lapierre, Romano Ricci, Auden Gudmundsson and Christian Short round out the top 10 at the moment.
And a relentless pace being set by certainly the pole man, or the guy who started on the front row alongside the pole position car, the RACGP pilot. But both are down in the 1:40 at this stage. Slightly quicker, in fact, for the chasing Fabian Michel. So he's still got a little bit of pace up his sleeve. He'll need to do a few more laps than that, though, to attempt to close the gap, which stands at 1.4 seconds.
Long race, remember, still an hour and 44 minutes to go with a compulsory pit stop. Driver change will come. Mick Jones there getting stuck in to a battle with the number 12 Kessel Racing car of Frederic Jousset. So we've got the recovering, I think that is the 50 car, I think, trying to get through. No, that is the ANS Motorsports 84 car trying to get through. Was Philip Amara a little further back in the order.
As you can't tear your eyes away from the scrapping LMP3, but we will try to at times to keep you up to date with what's going on in the GT3s, with Matthew Kerzhezhevsky appearing fairly comfortable, fending off Custodio Toledo in a similarly prepared AF Corsa Ferrari. They're not technically teammates because completely different challenges, initiatives coming from the familiar Italian outfit who prepares so many Ferraris through the years, Amato Ferrari squad. But they're in the ideal position right now with their two new 296s, the GT3 or LMGT3 cars. Briefly shown a stop there on the racetrack was Andrew Ferguson for P4 Racing. It does look like he's got going again now, but away from some of the other cars around him.
I'll slightly correct you, these are GT3 rather than GT3
You're
cars.
right, yes.
But whether or not
I'm
that
so
changes...
paranoid about calling it the right thing. I've added on an LM. We'll see those tomorrow.
We did see a good lingering shot there, though, of the third place battle. Jens Müller has got his mirrors full of Oscar Bitar. Bitar really had a crack at getting the lead into and through turn one. Couldn't quite make it as the two Team Virage cars sorted themselves out, but it's Jamie Falvey that actually made that away, and he still holds a second plus gap to Fabien Michel in the lead of this race. Last lap of the race, by the way, comes through a recovering Dino Leonardi. Remember, he started in 35th position. He is now up to 19th.
Great opening sector on lap 5 for Jamie Falvey. Faster than anybody else, so that will serve to maybe open up the gap to a full 2 seconds, which he's nearly done over the chasing Duquesne of Fabien Michel. Jens Müller for high-class racing a further 2.5 seconds adrift, so no doubt about it, we've got the class of the order in LMP3 in the right positions, first and second. But Fabien Michel needing to be careful not to allow Jamie Falvey into too much of a lead.
All sorts of battles up and down the order, in particular in the LMP3 class. Just had a quick shot there of the battle for 10th, or 9th rather. Alden Gudmundsson holding off Christian Short, Team Tour, head of the CD Sports number 11 car. And still this battle for third position goes on. About 3.5 seconds back from Fabien Michel, who's now 2 seconds back after the fastest lap of the race is posted, a 1:39.0 from race leader Jamie Falvey. Quite a find for Team Virage by the look of it. Dino Leonardi, meanwhile, is still making progress. He's now up into 17th place. He was also into the 39s last time around. Here's another look at the start.
So RH GP to the left of your shot, the Virage car of Jamie Falvey to the right, and Falvey, without jumping the start, got a much better getaway than Fabien Michel. I think actually bought himself quite a bit of time on the brakes, although there was very nearly contact between the two Virage cars when you look at it from that angle. So Falvey almost into the side of Oscar Bitar, who had to respond accordingly. And then 1 and 2 cars off into the gravel. I'm not sure whether they touched one another, actually. They may have spun independently.
It looked to me, if there was contact, it was 62 went wide on the inside. We had 2 cars wide on the outside, including the Cool Racing car. I think that was is that the 87? The 97. I have to check that one again. 97, I think, of Adrian Schiller. Then there was the spin for the number 50 car. Here's Jamie Falvey, and he is powering away now. 2.5 seconds to the good through the last timing section. He puts another 10th on it with Fabien Michel. Another replay here. And that was a bit of a tussle involving the number 43 car. And I think that might have been the 26 Breton Racing car involved there too.
43 being driven by Tim Kresick. He's the new signing with Inter-Europol competition, and unfortunately for Tim, starting to tumble down the order as he recovers that situation. But going back to what happened at turn 1 on the opening lap, I think almost sensing that Georgios Kolovos wanting to get out of the gravel, the 84 car that went for a spin, Julien Lemoine, was purely in avoidance because Kolovos was heading in his direction from the gravel trap, and he's tried to steer away and in the end pitched the car into a spin. Now we've got problems for the Iron Dames Lamborghini that has been started by Celia Martin. and suggestion perhaps that she's been off into the gravel because there's a lot of dust in that vicinity. It's turn 13 and actually not into the gravel, it's all tyre smoke, and then the gravel afterwards for another car avoiding action.
62
again. So the 62 spun at the first corner on the opening lap and now visits a gravel track for the second time in short order for Georgios Kolovos.
So she's got away there. There's been a shuffle in the order in GT3 as well. Darren Malkin making up one of the positions he lost in the tussle through between turn 1 and turn 2. So Celia Martin now down to 7th, Nick Jones 6th and 5th now for Darren Malkin. Still a 1-2-3 for the Ferraris, and it's the tussle between the giants of Ferrari Customer Racing, AF Corsa 1-2, Kessel Racing 3-4.
Two CD Sport cars running together now because of Shahar Sarkisian's moment earlier on when he... no, he's been making the progress, hasn't he? Christian Short possibly losing a few places, so they have now found one another in 10th and 11th spots, and just ahead of them is Auden Gudmundsson in the team tour car number 77 running in 9th place.
Malkin beginning to get his dander up here. He's with the, for him, the first of the two Kessels. It's the second of the two Kessels in the order, of course. Malkin, this number 24 car, second season for the Stella Motorsports Audi with a new driver squad, because the driver squad they finished the season with is in their LMP3 car. This is, or rather was, the battle between High Class Racing and the second of the Team Virage cars, but that will not have helped Oscar Bittar's chase. Malkin now looking for a way through and by the 296, the number 12 car. For 4th place in GT3 with the, I have to keep remembering it is the Reiter Engineering car now. This car raced, a car raced in these colours with Horst Filpermeyer Ferrari last year in the European Le Mans Series. It is going to be 10 seconds added to the pit stop for car 88 for a start infringement.
Very late on the brakes was the number 11 a moment or two ago. That was Christian Short. On contact then between the two teammates as Shahar Sarkisian came through, and Christian Short's Bullet, that's the cheese wedge shape, bit of bodywork that sits behind the rear wheels on these LMP3s, that's been knocked out of shape. So Christian Short late on the brakes, I think attempting to get by Auden Gudmundsson at turn 10. That left him stranded right in the middle of the track, and the next car through was Shahar Sarkisian with nowhere to go. So a kiss between the two cars, nose to tail, and it's potentially left Christian Shorts more badly damaged because they may have to sort that Bullet out at the next pit stop.
We'll point out, by the way, the car that has got that 10-second penalty currently running second in GT3, so a significant penalty. There it is, there's the 11 car. Absolutely nowhere to go for the number 2, I'm afraid.
Yep, Sarkisian desperately on the brakes.
Trouble.
Now more motorsport are off the road. This is the number 99 car, and trying to work out precisely where that is. It's at the first corner again for Mark van der Snel.
I think that is father with the father and son, isn't it? It's a dad-lad effort, and we've seen a change here.
Slowing
Jamie
Team Virage.
The leader is slowing to a stop and is dropping down the order. RSGP lead the race, and all of a sudden the 34 car comes through from what had been 4th and will be second here.
And this is all kicking
trouble
off.
For the other Virage car as a result of that tussle.
Oscar Bittar off the road as well. I'm still trying to work out precisely where Jamie Falvey has ended up, but RSGP, you're quite right, now lead the race for Fabian Michal. So Bittar, well, was that just all on his own?
We saw him up the inside of the Inter-Europol car.
Okay.
Now that was a contact from the, it's a safety car just been called now, by the way. The More Motorsport car was hit by the Carrera Models liveried Rinaldi car. I think that is the 21.
But was there a Virage car on the inside there, maybe affected by that with the rejoin of the car that initially biffed the More Motorsport?
So the 59 car was up the inside of the 34. That position had not yet been won. Jamie Falvey, I think, has rejoined the race.
But as the More Motorsport contact was being made, I thought there was another virage car heading into turn 1 on the inside.
That might have been a recovering Jamie Falvey.
Or was it Falvey still going okay, and then looking to, surely too early to be wanting to lap these cars. I'd like to see that again, and precisely which virage car it was and why it was going slowly, or might have been going slowly coming away from the incident. We are under safety car now. Unlike in the European Le Mans series, that does not close the pit lane. So, and Falvey's in, but that's more because the 44 car is limping towards its team. There's no visible damage on that car.
Perhaps down at the left rear.
That's the side typically that we can't see, but it might be.
Yeah, left rear. Hearing from Steph, there may be a problem there. So has there been...
And that was Falvey's in lap, wasn't it? So where in the sector did it happen? It all kicked off in the middle sector. So he's gone through sector 1 with no issues at all. And then at some point after turn 4, the car dramatically slowed, and in the same sector,
let's watch again here,
the 59 car of Bitar.
So there's been a spin there for Jamie Falvey, but was that... No, sorry, that's not. That's the other car. So that's the spin after contact, we think, with the 34. But that was the 34 having taken the position. And then the two cars sort of leaning on each other, really.
I didn't see a lean, I just saw a spin from Bitar.
You think he was across the...
I think he's frustrated having allowed the 34 through, and he's then tried to sort it all out on the exit at turn 12 and just maybe given it a bit too much right foot.
Okay.
I've only seen one angle of it, so I'm not completely convinced. And you say that they were leaving turn 12 more or less together. But it's a peculiar angle to then lose the car.
Turn two. It was turn 1, turn 2. The position was taken just...
Okay, right, yeah. Is the turn 2 incident not for More Motorsport, though? And the recovery of that car? I thought Bitar was off in the gravel between 12 and 13. We'll check that. Looked like it was coming over the rise and then into 13 and 14, and Bitar is off in the gravel to driver's left. This is where Mark van der Snel has ended up. This is definitely
that one we could do with sing again to see whether or not you're correct, and maybe it was Jamie Falvey trying to get back to the circuit. Falvey is out the car.
Yeah.
And that looks done.
Amazing how quickly things can change.
To nowhere and nowhere. So this was a replay of the start of the race.
And you had both virage cars almost touching one another here. I can't believe how Bitar managed to sort of put both feet on the brakes in order to very nearly pitched him into the wall as Falvey readjusted his line. That was mainly to avoid the then leader Fabien Michel and give him a perfect route into the first corner around the outside of the RHGP car.
So that was the 97 and one of the MV2S cars to the inside. Also, you could see the Iron Dames Lamborghini getting caught up in that. Others to the inside too.
The Iron Dames Lambo almost took the GT3 lead, in fact, but then had to leap on the brakes. And now where precisely has Oscar Bitar fallen off the road?
So you think that is between 11 and 12?
12 and 13.
12, 13.
I think he's lost it at 12 and he's ended up in the gravel on the exit of turn 12, the right-hander. Mark van der Snel's back in the race, so he's been lifted out of the gravel at turn 1.
That's
and
good news.
Rejoins but laps down.
Safety car, remember, is out on circuit as everybody gets relatively back into the order here. Well, let's call the order under the safety car. It is RHGP and Fabien Michel have taken the lead after whatever befell Jamie Falvey in the leading number 44 Team Virage car. That car we saw off the track. We don't know why and how, but we do know that car appears to be out the race with damage to the left rear. So RSGP lead from pole position on their debut from into Europol's 34 car in the hands of Alexander Bekantsov, after Bekantsov took full advantage of the battle in front of him, going by two cars, then involved, well, either with a tussle or a misunderstanding or something with the other Virage car, the 59 car, which is in the hands of Oscar Bitar, in the gravel, we think between turns 12 and 13. So from first and fourth, at the moment, Team Virage are out of the race and 33rd. High-class racing Jens Reiner Muller, through all of that, stays third. James Swetnam in Cool Racing's 87, which was one of the cars, it was the 97, wasn't it? Not the 87, it was the Adrian Chella car. They're fourth for Cool Racing. Racing Spirit Le Mans number 10, hands of Christophe Lapierre. A relatively incident-free fifth from M Racing's Romano Ricci. Sixth, Team Tour in the 77 car, Alden Gudmundsson is seventh. CD Sports 11 and 2, which have had contact. They sit 8th and 9th with Christian Short and Shahan Sarkisian. Ben Stone in Breton Racing's 26 car, Czech team that made their LMP3 debut in the Asia Le Mans Series this season and scored a race win. That team sit and complete the top 10. In GT3, 22nd overall, but leading the class is the 51 Ferrari for AF Corsa, the 296 GT3 of Matt Kozajowski. 2 positions back in the overall order with the P3 car between them is the 88 car, the second AF Corsa car of Castillo Toledo, but that car will need to serve a 10-second longer pit stop for a start procedure issue. The next 2 are also Ferraris, both from Kessel Racing, Andrew Gilbert and Fred Jousset, 3rd and 4th, the 74 and the 12. Then Stella Motorsports, Audi, the 24, in the hands of Darren Malkin. High Class Racing's Porsche in the hands of Nick Jones, and Celia Martin, after a couple of incidents for the Iron Dames car, stumbled across the spinning P3s and delayed the car at the start, and then a spin just before we went to safety car for the number 83 car. Drops them to the back of the currently 7-car GT3 field.
That's quite some summing up, Graham, but I think you've pretty much covered everything there, and there's been an awful lot happening in the opening 23 minutes. So we're under a safety car. Remember, safety car at this level in this championship doesn't automatically close the pit lane, so if you see that it's going to be of value, then it might be wise to dive in. The Oscar Bitar recovery does continue, and it is the exit of turn 12. I didn't think I was misreading that.
I think it's 13. I think it's 13-14. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there's no gravel at 13-14.
Right, which case it's 12-13.
Well, there kind of is, but you have to go further wide and over a sausage curb. There's a slight rise. It says 12 there on the Marshall post, in fact. Got more confirmation.
Yeah, I think what we should say here is it's good to see that the Michelin Le Mans Cup field has forgotten nothing about drama since 2023.
It just gets drawn into it, doesn't it?
New people, new ways of causing carnage.
It's true. And although, you know, it has produced some absolutely stupendous racing over the years, there's no argument there, particularly early on in a brand new season. It does take a bit of time to knock the cobwebs away, it seems, even if we have got new drivers into new cars and new teams. It doesn't disappoint, is the statement that should be on the banner of the Michelin Le Mans Cup ahead of every race meeting.
Indeed. Team Virage, the defending champions, couldn't have had really a worse start here, could they?
But the start was great. It was just sort of 2 laps in that everything went awry, and could have got even worse than that, because, as I say, when they were jostling for position into turn 1, they very nearly ran into one another.
That was inches away from absolute disaster.
And the corrective methods of Oscar Bitar should be applauded to steer well away from his teammate JV Falvey at the time. There's no chance that they actually made contact there, but I'm still struggling to work out precisely where the rear left damage has occurred for that car.
They're clearly struggling with the recovery of that 59 car. Still, it's not been lifted. So whether or not they've had a problem with the lift bar,
it could be
piece of kit that is equips all of the recovery vehicles around the circuits for all these ACO Wheels racing events. It has lifting points for every car in the field. There's the Nissan GTR safety car. Both fast and furious, that car.
Simultaneously.
Indeed.
I'm reminding myself at this point in time how long the drive time is, because that's been a sliding scale over the last few years. I think we were set last year on 45 minutes. So I want to be able to say the exact number where possible, but it tends to be the same across both classes as well. So easy for us to remember through the course of the race. One or two things have changed elsewhere in the championship, so I'll check through the regulations before I confirm.
Just as we pass the instant sight, there is one lifting vehicle reversing away, another has arrived. They've clearly had some kind of equipment problem.
Confirmed, the minimum driving time for a driver in the race is 45 minutes, regardless of whether you're in P3 or GT3. So now the recovery should pick up a bit more speed. Obviously this is eating into, though, the opening stint, because we're already over the 25-minute marker, so in another 20 minutes you could pit and switch to your second driver. As the train behind the safety car continues, so we're in stall for at least one more lap. Jamie Falvey's back in the pits, as we know. Let's get his side of the story now with Steph Wentworth.
I'm with Jamie Falvey, driver of the number 44 Team Virage car. Jamie, what a fantastic start to the race. You know, great qualifying for you, and it's just such a shame that it had to end this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gutted. I'm not ashamed to admit I cried on the in lap. But yeah, the car was mega. If anything, we had a better race car than we did a quali car, and I was a bit annoyed with the quali result. I thought we had it there. But yeah, just really disappointing. Obviously, Mina didn't get to drive, and it's not it's no one's fault. It's just one of those things. Sometimes it happens, but hey, there's more important things in life. As we found out earlier, we lost a really good guy this week. So, you know, racing's a big family. We'll all get around each other and give each other the support we need and go again around two.
And looking at the car, you know, you can't see too much superficial damage. Could you tell us exactly what went wrong and why we had to retire the car?
It's difficult to tell initially. I came out of, I think it was turn 7, and didn't hit anything, no curbs, and I had a really small vibration. And I just thought, okay, I'm about to key up on the radio and just say I've got a small vibration. I thought it could have been tyre related. But then literally as soon as I went for the radio, I went bang, and it sounded like a gearbox because we didn't have fourth gear. So yeah, gutted. But everyone's really been working hard this weekend, and Virage have just been a dream to drive for the entire week. So massive thanks to them, and obviously Mina, my teammate, has been on it from day one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, but put this right.
Exactly, and you know what, the season is long ahead. You've had a really good start to the season, should we say. Can we expect big things from you in the upcoming races? Yeah,
obviously we're on the back foot now, so it's all out 100% every single race. We've got nothing to lose now, so certainly the guys, the rest of the grids put up a really good fight today. Credit to Fabian at the start. We had a good battle, and he left space, I left space, and it's going to be a good battle for the rest of the season.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, cheers.
Rev starting to rise, but we are still under the safety car. Well, a very informative interview that from Jamie. He may well have been in tears on the in-lap, but he can assess the situation in a very kind of mature fashion. And Minea Stefan, that he was referring to there, his co-driver, who won't get a chance to race in the Le Mans Cup this weekend, but a champion last year in the Ligier European Series at JSP4 level. Along the way, 7 wins, 8 podia. So he's a charge from Romania. We'll have to wait until Paul Ricard till we get to see him again.
Now, Jamie, not a guy I know that well, but I suspect you do through the Ginetta Super Cup.
Yeah, I'd have to check back to see exactly how many races he did. I'm aware that he competed within that and was a mean racer when he did. I don't know him well, but I was aware of his UK backing. But that, I think it was a couple of years ago, yeah. 2022.
The driver coach, certainly, and clearly, well, two things. One, able to wield a Ligier very quickly indeed, and two, able to give the kind of feedback we heard giving to Steph Wentworth there. And welcome back, Steph. First time we've seen and heard Steph on air for this season for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and it's great to get the band back together.
I realise even more so now why I don't think I've ever met Jamie, because he did all his racing in 2020 when very few people were actually allowed on site for obvious reasons. So I watched him race, but haven't actually met him in person. That will be something
Safety
to do
car in this lap.
at the next
Safety car
meeting.
In this lap.
So about to go back to green flag racing. Grandboursier calls time on the roundy stuff for all the Nissan GTR for the time being, and it will be Fabien Michel that controls the field, brings it back down into some order before we go back to the loud stuff.
So Michel, Bukantsov, Moller, but they're all peering at the rear wing of the RACE GP car to see precisely when Fabien Michel's going to go, and that's the signal. As the green flag is waved, the message in his ear, I'm sure, to get the pedal down, and once you go, you have to remain fully at race speed into turn 14 and back across the stripe. They will go for the 15th time then, and he's pulled a decent gap on Alexander Bukantsov in the Inter-Europol competition car.
Slippery surface flags will be shown at turns 12 and 13. Sort of tells a story, doesn't it? But, hour and 18 minutes to go, so that means we have under 15 minutes until we get into driver change territory.
Also good dicing between the M Racing car and the Racing Spirit of Le Mans for Christophe Lapierre, late on the brakes to jump ahead of the number 13 car. James Swetnam not too far away. Car 17 is the one that suffered the difficulties in qualifying earlier on, but Dino Lunardi's done a cracking job to get it into the top 11 positions now, just ahead of Ben Stone in his Breton Racing car.
But he needs to do that, doesn't he? Because he is the higher ranked driver.
Yes.
There's still to come in the EDEX Sport car. Needs to be pushing to be at the front. He's doing well at the moment.
That's true. Whilst mostly the bronzes are at the controls.
Trouble for the 29 MV2S car, and we've got a drive-through penalty for the number 71, causing a collision, and some phenomenal avoidance going on here for the 29.
Tremendous, both left and right. It's Clement Moreno who featured in the Ligier European Series earlier on today as well. So he's been on triple duty, well, 2 championships and 3 races through the course of today. Facing the wrong way, so that will have been all covered by local yellows, but it's a nasty corner to suddenly see a car absolutely sideways at turn 7.
There's significant debris around in that area as well. Stefan Ousted is in the 71 that's going to be getting that drive through. And it takes that immediately, puts the leading car in GT3 up into the top 20 overall. Kozieski, remember, will take advantage as well through the pit stops. The number 51 car, because the 88 will get 10 seconds penalty at its pit stop. And that will happen fairly shortly.
So that's how Clement Moreno lost the car, just a bit too hot into the turn 7, turn 8 sequence.
Then got clattered, and
I
there's
did
damage.
see some debris on the track surface immediately afterwards and wonder whether we'd missed that first time around. Not sure which car it was that collected the nose, or a section of the front right portion of nose, and it's the 5-0 car that's in. Steph just informing us of that off air, and Horst Felbermayr, that's the reason why the Reiter car has come in with damage, because it rode over the top of Clement Moreno's front, or the splitter on the 29 car.
And that's the 29 car at a halt. Looks to me to be at turn 1. That should be a relatively simple recovery. There is a gap in the barrier there. Yellows at turn 1, slippery surface at turn 12, 13. And the number 50 car being taped back together, shall we say. And trouble as well for the number 12. And which of the P3 cars is that? That's the 12 Kessel Racing car.
Down the inside for one of the Virage. It's the 59 that's back in the race. 59. So is that still Oscar Bittard, who's desperately trying to get some of the places back again? Has only completed 12 laps as opposed to Fabien Michel, the race leader, 17. So he's actually 5 laps down, but has totally misjudged the braking point there and clattered into the side of a Ferrari. So let's hope that they can both get running again, but there are currently yellow flags into turn 12 and 13, or slippery surface at turn 12, I should say. And it looks like actually yellow flags at turn 10 have been withdrawn, so that suggests to me that both cars are going again. Yeah,
the 12 car certainly cleared a timing points. Stella Motorsports Audi up into 4th in GT3 now. Still working, by the way, on the battered front to the writer Ligier. Motor Engineering, right the thick of things a couple of seasons ago, weren't they, with Freddie Hunt?
12 car, you're right, did have a much slower lap. That's Fred Jose in his Kessel Racing 296, which was rather rudely assaulted by a recovering Oscar Bitar, doing a 1:57 that Ferrari, but should be back up to speed. Let's hope if the damage is not too bad. 17 laps done now, 18 in fact for Fabien Michel in the RA's GP car, leading by 1.1 seconds, and we're about 8 or 9 minutes away from effectively the pit window opening. It's not labelled as a pit window in the regulations. You have to have completed 45 minutes on drive time.
Yep.
And that's what really suggests the pit window to those involved.
Unsurprisingly, the incident between 12 and 59 is under investigation. Trouble now for the 71 car. That's a car that's already had a drive-through penalty. It was exactly where that previous incident happened, wasn't it?
Stefan
It was
Aust
the 12
spinning,
again.
in fact.
It was the 12 again.
And the 59 around the outside. All the carnage is being either attracted by the 2 Virage cars, or now it seems the 12 you can lump into that as well. The Kessel Racing 296 Ferrari.
I don't think Frederic Jousset is enjoying his afternoon, and looked to me to be the innocent party in both of those incidents.
Tim Kresick being shown as stopped on the racetrack. I think that's fairly recent, but I'm not sure where Tim has ended up. He's still dropping down the order, might be moving again now, but is losing a bit of time as the repair work to the Felbermeyer liveried car continues. Car 50 for Horst Felbermeyer.
Now shown as stopped.
Yeah. Well, Tim Kresick was shown as stopped, and he got going again, and now the dreaded red letter S is next to his name once again. And he hasn't made it back to the pits as far as I can tell. Here's the 29 that went for a spin at turn 7.
And then was stopped at turn 1, so that car has made it back to pit lane. This is Fabien Michel. That's our top 3 cars. Ahead of Alexander Bekantsov and Jens Moller. 1, 2, 3 separated by about 4 seconds. Then a big gap, and then most of the rest of the LMP3 cars in the world. 10 car of Racing Spirit Le Mans, Christophe Lapierre a strong 4th, and then the gaps behind generally registering in 10ths all the way through to about 16th or 17th place. 83 car, Ryan Dames getting back onto terms with the number 18 High Class Racing. Have to get used to calling it the High Class Racing car. Same car, same colour, same number as the car raced last year. CD Sport car, by the way, still sporting the battered rear end it suffered in the somewhat self-inflicted issue with the system number 2.
I'm starting to think that Tim Kresick's problem is actually a faulty transponder, because he's back up into 17th position now. So either that's Alcamel putting him into the order manually, or it's just an intermittent glitchy transponder. But the sector times look pretty good from the sister Inter-Europol competition car. Remember, 2nd place for Alexander Bekantsov for the Polish Bakers, and the sister car is just inside the top 20 and does appear to be there on merit rather than struggling at to the side of the circuit somewhere.
About 5 minutes from the point at which the drivers can choose to take a pit stop. So what is that? About 3 laps. Bekantsov closes the gap to under 1.2 seconds, the RSGP car.
And a good time from Bekantsov as well, a 1:39.8. The best lap behind as well for Jens Moller. So track conditions would appear to be really good at the moment. Maybe that peak temperature from the track surface is just starting to dissipate.
In fact, Jens Moller just edged back towards Alexander Bekantsov with that lap time. He's about 2.5 seconds back. Bekantsov is starting to nibble away at the gap to the leader.
So when will they pit? If track conditions are good at the moment, you probably don't want to be heading into the pit lane when everybody else does, because the pit lane itself becomes incredibly busy. There are already 2 cars there, but they might be tucked away, as now the number 17 car really applying pressure. Dino Lunardi, as you would expect, because he is the quicker of the 2 drivers in car number 17. He's gold graded, let us not forget, sharing with the bronze Patrice Lafargue. So Lunardi ideally wants to be in the top 5 by the time the pit stops begin.
Well, he's made up 29 places so far, Dino Lunardi. He's just under 11 seconds back from the leader overall, but his Jan Malik manages to make it 30.
That was James Swetnam with really no challenge to fend off Lunardi. He tried his level best, but Lunardi right at the inside, braking as late as possible, and another one picked off.
That is the 29 car. There was a change of nose section on that car. That didn't come in all black at the front. So certainly Lunardi can make up one more place on pace. He'll go, I'm sure, as deep into this race as he can. So that could take us as far as an hour and 5 minutes into this race before handing the car over to Patrice Lafargue. The 29 car rejoins the race.
Yeah, and interestingly, they chose not to change the driver there. It would have been outside the pit window, but they were doing a longer stop anyway, so would it have been wise to do fuel and tyres and a driver change whilst you're at it, and then hope that you can do a quick driver change later on?
Well, the gap from Dino Lunardi to Christophe Lapierre has closed very rapidly indeed. The lead export driver will be challenging for 4th, I suspect, either at the end of this lap or the beginning of the next, as we've got a battle for 3rd in GT3. Darren Malkin all over the back of Andrew Gilbert.
So 3rd position in GT3. They're ultimately hunting down the 2 AF Corsa run Ferrari 296s, but there's a bit of a gap before they reach them, and actually they'll be slowing one another up a touch. However, this is an important position to be squabbling for. Andrew Gilbert in the Kessel car, principally black with the orange roof, ahead of the Audi of Darren Malkin.
Dino Lunardi, 2 purple sectors, as you might expect, released from the battle he's been involved in. Christophe Lapierre trying to respond. He's going quicker than he has before. Only 7 minutes remain. Cracking battle here. Turbo V6 versus normal aspirated V10. 2 very different answers to the supercar question.
Both turning right, almost as one through the very fast and important turn 9, underneath a monster spectator bridge, which is currently being constructed in readiness for the Grand Prix later on in the year, to give access to all of these grandstands that are around turns 12 and 13 and 14 as well. So unfortunately for the spectators, I think all this bit is pretty much off limits, but what it does do is make a huge crowd in the main grandstand, many of whom have stayed late in the evening to witness this Michelin Le Mans Cup race, as Darren Malkin again has a long look up the inside of Andrew Gilbert's car, but the Kessel Racing Ferrari stays firm.
Yeah, there's still very fresh the Audi R8, LMS GT3, this Evo 2 spec, the current spec and final spec for Audi's GT3 runner. Road car out of production as of last month. Race car sales against the publicised plans from Audi Sport Customer Racing have also ceased, but Stella Racing and others still very committed indeed to what has been one of the most spectacularly successful platforms in GT racing in the modern era. Here's Dino Lunardi. He's now with Christophe Lapierre, looking for a way by the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car and into the top 4. He's got something of a gap after that, 4.5 seconds before he can get into the provisional podium positions. May well get help with that, because we are now, Johnny Palmer, into the pit stop window.
There's obviously nothing wrong with the number 12 Kessel Racing Ferrari. It's just done its fastest lap of the race. That was a slight lock-up for the MV2S car that is doing slightly better than the sister machine. So car 28, which continues on. There's a big lock-up there as well for car 84, which was in strife at the very start of the race, you may remember. Giorgio Kolovos.
That's Julien Le Mans.
Oh, beg your pardon.
The other car was 62.
62 is Kolovos.
He did very well to gather that up. He was absolutely on the lock stops, wasn't he?
And the other name I was ferreting around for, Roman Iannietta for MV2S Racing in the 28 car, the 29 that's had the drama to this point. Now then, we've hit 45 minutes, so the first to blink is the high-class racing Porsche diving for pit road. In fact, before that, we saw the 51 car come in of Matthew Kurzejewski from the lead of the race.
Indeed we did, and that means the number 88 car will go through to take the lead, but remember, when that car comes in, it must take a further 10 seconds. Let's have a look at just gathering this up. This could have been far more dramatic. Did really well to gather that car back up.
And challenging. Was that Tim Kresick then ahead? Yeah, it was. So Kresick, we were wondering whether that car was still moving. It definitely is, and it's still in front of Julien Le Mans, who very nearly lost that car entirely at turn 1 and would have cleaned Tim Kresick's Inter Europol competition car out in the process.
Interesting call to race control for the team manager for the race leader.
Okay.
Race GP, car number 85 to race control immediately. Keep an eye on that one, Johnny. And still, Dylan Nardi trying to get onto terms with Christophe Lapierre, who's doing very well indeed to hold off the gold-ranked driver. He's now battled for third, by the way, with the stop from Bukantsov underway. This will all shuffle its way back out, of course, further into the race. Car 27 is under investigation for pit lane speeding. That tends to be fairly conclusive, doesn't it? Well, that's P4 Racing Andrew Ferguson. That will be in pits on the way in. Yeah.
Normally, there's something up that has been clocked on one of the radar systems to monitor speed. And there's no smoke without fire, which tends to be the scenario there. So a report has gone in, an investigation now taking place, and we'll wait to see the answer to that. Christophe Lapierre and the chasing Dino Lunardi continue to entertain for third and fourth positions currently, as the GT3 race leader has headed in. So we'll have a driver change here in the 51 car to be taken over by Alessandro Balzan.
Well, it's a name to conjure with. Previous IMSA GTD champion Alessandro Balzan, sharing Scuderia Corsa car, I think it was, with Christina Nielsen.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah, that's ringing bells with me now.
Here is the RSGP car in from the lead. That hands over the lead to Jens Muller in the high-class racing car. He's had a very steady, solid run here. The 51 car out into the race again. Jones rolls down pit lane. This will sort its way out. Some of the more confusing periods of time in a sports car race, with a window of opportunity for cars to pit. It takes a while for this to wind its way out. Incident between cars 62 and 84, by the way. There was no further action. May well be that you were right, and there's no contact in two separate incidents.
No, that was
Johnny.
from way back, wasn't it?
That was
the first corner.
Yeah.
So Julien Le Mans in the 84 and Georgios Kolovos in the 62. Kolovos with a good gravelly moment, and I think 84 just in avoiding action. Did see that from a few angles. Still one or two moments from the start of the race that I'd like to revisit, but it's rather suggests from Jamie Falvey that that was just a mechanical drama, maybe a gearbox going bang, which would have been very difficult to detect before we got underway. Meanwhile, the sole surviving Team Virage car has just been brought in by Oscar Bitar, car number 59, to be handed over to Ricardo Graciafilo, the Brazilian.
That's the final runner at the moment, the 59. He lost laps with the extended trip into the gravel. So they struggled to return that car to the racing surface. But remarkably, with the exception of Jamie Falvey's number 44 car, we heard he thought maybe a gearbox problem. Everyone else still running.
Yeah. That is a surprise, considering the amount of incident we've had already in a race that's only 50 minutes in duration so far. And as the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car tried to squirrel its way through a gap that was closing and closing and closing into turn 4, thankfully perfect car control from Christophe Lapierre. He's been at the wheel of that car since the start, so is aware of its behavioural tactics. But the gap, the problem for him, the gap was closing like crazy. Dino Lunardi's just in front of him, and there were a couple of cars rejoining, I think, from pit stops.
And leaves the race, by the way.
Yeah.
So he has gone through the entire field.
But very nearly lost it, wholly sideways, and had the race leader to his immediate front and right, I think.
Quite a drive for Christophe Lapierre, you know.
It's been terrific. And mainly for just escaping moments, but he's keeping a cool head. A wave from Fabien Michel, who's just got out the number 85 RS GP car and handed over to fellow Frenchman Adrien David. So David is theoretically the quicker of the two. There's tends to be not a great deal between them, but Adrien David is the silver-rated driver. So if you have been disappointed by the pace of this race so far, I'm not quite sure why you would be, but it's going to pick up even faster now as the pros start to take over.
Racing Spirit Le Mans car pits, which means CD Sport now, by the way, second and third. There's just a handful of cars still to pit.
Way up the curb there for the number 2 CD Sport car. Shahan Sarkisian staying out for as long as possible. So he is battling as well, not with the 62 car up ahead, but Sarkisian 6.3 seconds away from the race leader Dino Lunardi. And Christian Short also staying out. So this is obviously a deliberate tactic from the 2 CD Sport runners to eat further through the pit stop window and hand over maybe with 45 minutes to go.
So the inspection hatch at the front of the 77 Team Tour car is off. It doesn't bode well for the Gudmundsson.
Had it been taken off or had it fallen off?
Possible.
It didn't seem like there was a mechanic anywhere near to it. Maybe they were sourcing a replacement.
43 car from Inter-Europol, another pit stopper at this point. That's Tim Kresick brought the car in.
Just to remind you, you might be wondering why some of these pit stops there's not a lot happening in them. Well, that's because they're waiting for the time to tick down. 165 seconds is the rule for this weekend, so that's 2 minutes and 45, and the car must be within the pit lane, so between the 2 timing loops for that period of time.
There's Oliver Gudmundsson, he's pretty happy with his lot, our Icelandic Viking. Why are the pit stops that long? This is a rung on the ladder. This is about learning the trade, not putting risk that you don't have to put into, and not putting expense into it. There's no big fueling rigs here, there's no huge pit crews. It's about learning the trade, and that means that those stops can be done in an orderly and safe fashion. That's it.
And then, as you get better and better, you can progress into higher classes where the pit stops are done as quickly as possible. For instance, at the 24 Hours of Le Mans race, also in LMP2 in the ELMS, but even at LMP3 level within the European Le Mans Series, 2 of the 3 stops that you'll normally have to make are restricted by a minimum pit stop reference time. We'll see more of that tomorrow.
So the good news for Dino Lunardi is he leads by 8 seconds at the moment, but the bad news starts to gather from this point forward because the pace is coming in the field behind him. The names are beginning to appear. Colin Noble has emerged in that Team Tour car, so no problems there. Wayne Boyd and Colin Noble together on track again. It's like the old days, but Wayne Boyd, by the way, now with Nielsen Racing, because if you do follow the Michelin Le Mans Cup regularly, why wouldn't you? You might have noticed no United Autosports. Their LMP3 days are done for the time being with the LMP3 project. Daniel Kalvitz, by the way, 20th place for the Rinaldi race at number 66, but he's just put in the fastest lap of the race at 138.250 and has just done 2 purple sectors in the first 2 sectors of the lap he's on. So it looks like he's going to bring that total down even more, and takes another 1/10 of a second off. It's a 1:30, in fact, a second off. It's a 1:37.750. So gaps are going to start to come down. It's going to be more and more difficult from this point forward for Dino Lunardi to be extending his advantage over the opposition.
Christian Short's car obviously came in with the damage to the rear. It didn't look like the team were paying much attention to the broken bullet, and there it is, in fact, right on cue.
It's still
hanging on, so I don't think they do need to repair that. It's not dragging on the floor, as we've seen so many times over the years. So as long as it's still reasonably solidly connected, as now the Felbermeyer car has a spin at turn 10, just to finish the point, they're just going to leave that and hope that it holds on to to that's not the Felbermeyer car, it's a 58 GG Classics car.
Yeah.
No relation?
No.
Apparently.
I'm not classic in any way, or indeed classy. And that was all by himself. Is that George Nakos? It's Fraser Ross.
Out by now,
it's Fraser Ross just emerging, maybe with colder tyres, Fraser. Driver that can be very pacey indeed. Here comes the CD Sport car back out into the race. Frank Chapard brings the number 11 car back out onto the racing surface. About 8 minutes before we will have to see Dino Lunardi on pit lane. He currently has a 10-second advantage over the second place car of Shahan Sarkisian, who also needs to stop, with a further 11 seconds to Roman Yanetta. Again needs to stop. Fourth in the overall order is Celia Martin in the GT3 leading Iron Dames Lamborghini, because that is the only GT3 car that has yet to stop.
Just looking down to see the majority of the field to make sure they've ticked off the right time. Ah, yes, and number 26, Breton Racing, Dan Scoctopolo.
Yes.
2 minutes and 44 seconds. So what we don't have is the .000 bit, but I bet it's something like .9, and that therefore is not a legal stop. And we've also, got one that's
2:32.
cut it significantly for CD Sports. Frank Chapard, or which one are you looking at?
It is Frank Chapard has just emerged.
CD Sport car number 11.
So that is, well, 10 seconds and change. That's going to be a big penalty for that car. That they appear to be the only two in any doubt at the moment.
Adrian David's just gone across the line. That's a new fastest lap of the race, as battling cars virtually side by side.
And that is the car that is the leading car that has stopped.
Yes.
Adrian David is 5th place. He has, what is that, 8 seconds ahead of Tommy Foster in the high-class racing car. And beyond that, we're starting to get into some of the other talent, the pro talent in this LMP3 field. 52 minutes to go. Dino Lunardi pits now. So that is about right, because by the time that pit stop is finished, we're going to be pretty close to 45 minutes bogey time, aren't we?
Yes, we will. 45 minutes required on the drive time. And remember, that is from pit out to the checkered flag. I often say there's a little bit of wriggle room there, because the checkered flag may come out after the 1 hour and 50 minutes have resumed, because it will wait for the race leader. Now hearing about a drive-through penalty, though, for car 59 after causing a collision with the number 12 Kessel Racing Ferrari. And that was Bittart, far too ambitious on the brakes, up the inside of the number 12 Ferrari and spinning it at turn 10. Virtually at this point, that was Fred Jose, the innocent party. So that's going to be a drive-through for car 59. I mean, it's at the back anyway, 34th. And 34th of the remaining runners. The only car to retire so far is the sister Virage car. That's an unconventional line out of turn 12. Rally crossing their way into turn 13.
That is Frank Chapard.
Car 97 with a question mark as to... was it 97 or 87?
It was 97. That was the car that went wide at turn 1 on lap 1.
Right. Well, I've got wide. David Drew in 97.
That was 97.
Fine. And Frank Chapard in the number 11.
My apologies, I've misread, haven't I?
Rightio.
Here is
easily done with this screen.
The previous race leader, Elec Sports, in the hands of Dino Lunardi, driving through the entire field. Also on pit lane, the last remaining car in LMP3 that had not pitted, Roman Yanetta in the MV2S number 28 car. 23 seconds apart, those two, when they came in. And that looks like another change, because that is the Stella Motorsport car ahead of Riccardo Agostini, of course, because the 88 car had to serve the extra 10 seconds. But Agostini now trying to get by Alex Acker, team principal of another of the Audi customer teams. I said earlier in the show, Attempto Racing is racing here for Stella Motorsports. Stella are looking for a solution to bring this car for the full season.
So remind me how long that penalty was for the 88, an extra 10 seconds, and they've done a pit stop for 2 minutes and 56 seconds, so that's absolutely fine, yeah. Remember, it's in addition to the time spent stationary in the pit bay, there's not a penalty box as such, so you don't have to move to another location to then serve your further 10 seconds. It's done with the team. Dino Lunardi is into the pit lane. Roman Iniesta also for MV2S Racing. Little bit of a gravelly moment there. Now that might have been Frank Chapard.
Let's not miss the moment of the Iron Dames lead this race, because they do, but they need to get onto pit lane pretty darn quickly, or they are going to run out of time for there to be 45 minutes remaining to be served by the second driver here.
Well, bearing in mind you've got to be stationary for 2 minutes and 45 seconds of that, and the driving time only begins when you leave pit road and cross the timing loop, so it is going to be nip and tuck.
It has to be right now, 30 seconds till they're on pit lane, and it's going to be very tight.
The one saving grace, of course, is that it's judged to, the checkered flag is judged to where the overall leader is, and you would think the Lamborghini will cross the line quite a bit time after that.
In comes the Lamborghini.
The drive time, well, they've got 3 minutes to play with here. That should be okay, because the drive time will not finish dot on 45 minutes because they're a GT3 car. Meanwhile, 88 to the inside of the Audi, and Agostini looking for a way by Alex Acker, but Acker's not going to make it as easy as that in the Stella Motorsport car, peering right into the cockpit a moment or two ago. So I think sun glare is going to be a big issue for both of these drivers as well. And the Audi using every bit of the road available to it. Alex Acker, mightily experienced.
Must be a pleasure for Alex to actually be able to tough it out in an Audi that's not his.
Well, true. He's not paying the bills, or maybe he will be paying some of them, but they're not. It's not an attempt to Audi, is your point. But
this is a cracking run from this pair. This is a great little battle for, at the moment, a podium position, of course. So we watch the Iron Dames car start to drop down the order. RSGP, of course, to the lead. And the lead against Tommy Foster, 5.5 seconds. Rick Kern in the 34 Intereuropol car, 1.8 seconds back. Adrien Closemir, 4.7 seconds back from that. Then David Drew, Marius Fossard, Frank Chapard, Colin Noble, Wayne Boyd, and Patrice Lafargue. Remember, that car that had been the leader is now down in 10th place, 23 seconds back. 30 seconds, by the way, covers the top 14 cars.
And very, very shortly, the Iron Dames Lamborghini will appear back out onto the racetrack, although car 83 is now under investigation for the speed that it headed down pit road. Well, we said they were going to be short on time. Let's hope they didn't think we were going to have to go slightly faster than the 80 kilometres per hour in order to make it up. It shouldn't have been that nip and tuck. Celia Martin is out, handing over to Karen Gaillard, her teammate.
Traffic here for the race leader, and it does appear to be holding him up. It is the 59 Team Virage car. So there does appear to be a slight delay here for the race leader. What can Tommy Foster do with that opportunity?
I'm pretty sure there must be about 3 59 cars in this race, because we're seeing it that readily. And if you're not going to win the race or finish in the top 3, then make sure you certainly play a big enough part in it. We've seen it plenty of times, mainly when Oscar Bitar has been at the wheel, but Ricardo Garcia has now taken over, Brazilian.
We've seen one Stella Motorsport car in a battle. There's another one also looking to bang on the door of the top 10, and that is their debuting Duquesne. Here's the lead Duquesne from RSGP. The second Duquesne in the order, 11th place for Seton Fielding, having taken over from Sylvain Guintoli. They are looking at a top 10 finish on their LMP3 debut here.
Iron Dames Lamborghini update. They've done a 2 minutes and 47 second stop, so that's absolutely fine. And the 45-minute marker has only just been reached. So Karen Gaillard drive time should be okay. They've still got the threat of the speed limit, though, as is that the 12 Kessel Racing Ferrari again?
Yeah, 12 and the 80 and the 58.
And the 18
made
I-Class
contact.
racing car, yeah, 50 rather than the GG Classics car. I'm still telling the Felbermeyer versus...
It was the GT Classics car made contact with the Kessel car. For me, that was on the Ferrari.
Well, Ferrari's got to get through the corner at some point, but yeah, also got to make sure that there isn't a car immediately alongside when it does so. So the Ferrari forced wide and down the escape road. Didn't see all of that, but let's hope that the number 12 Kessel Racing car took to the escape road throughout for David Fuminelli, to give you another big star that has been attracted to the Michelin Le Mans Cup for 2024. Still plenty of sorting out to be done here, including for Colin Noble in the number 77 Team Tour car that he shares with Icelandic driver Albin Gudmundsson. The Noble-driven car now has Frank Chapard just ahead. Marius Fossart also involved. What's happening here? Late on the brakes for the number 84 car to dive up the inside of Patrice Lafargue in the EDEX Sport car. So now driving car 84 is Paul Trajani, fellow Frenchman to his teammate Julien Lemoine.
So all sorts going on here. Fastest lap of the race at the moment, 1:37.153 from Daniel Kivitz. LMP3, Carlo Agostini just a few moments ago in the Ferrari with the fastest GT3 lap. And still blue sectors coming in all over the place, the fastest sectors for these cars. Yet again the number 12 car involved with a multi-car tussle. Gets through this time. It's Colin Noble closing on Frank Chapard for 7th place.
Now to the inside line of... No, he's already got past the Ferrari, so the car immediately behind.
There's too many blue and white leashes, aren't there?
There are, as Wayne Boyd is involved in that. So is that the Nielsen racing car? Is Nielsen close enough? Yeah, they're not far away. So Wayne Boyd closing on Colin Noble, and Noble going for the move on the CD Sport car. Not going to quite pull it off, or it might do through the next sequence of corners. Oof. And a hip and shoulder to add. Let's check out what this race has offered in the first hour or so, though. Very bright and sunny conditions at Barcelona, and it didn't take long at all for the two Virage cars to put on a real show. They were on the high line at the approach to turn number 1, and very nearly Jamie Falvey and Oscar Bittard coming to blows. Falvey, though, with the better route into turn number 1 to jump ahead of the pole-sitting number 85 RS GP car of Fabien Michel, but then all sorts broke loose behind, including a couple of independent spins for number 84, started by Julien Lemoine, and the 62 car from the gravel right across the road. The 62 car struggling to get back up and running and briefly going in the wrong direction. Plenty of reaction down in the pit garages from that as well. There was also an early spin for car number 43, Tim Kresick, and this for Celia Martin, close to the end of one of the laps for the Iron Dames Lamborghini. She was able, though, to rejoin. Contact between the number 71 car down at the first corner, which pitched the More Motorsport 99 of Mark van der Snel into the gravel. And that would require a safety car in order to retrieve that machine from the gravel, because the rear wheels were buried deeply in the stones. More action for Oscar Bittard as he tried to recover from the earlier travails, and he then had to his high side the Inter-Europol competition car of Alexander Bukantsov. There was then that spin just slightly out of frame. We maybe think there was contact now, which put Bittard into the gravel trap. Though that then forced a lengthy recovery for number 59, as the second recovery vehicle needed to be called, and the safety car might have proposed a twist-in strategy for some teams, but actually most are sticking with the 45-minute minimum drive time. This was not a happy place for the MV2S racing car of Clement Moreno to be sitting, and he was actually collected by the number 50 car as well. Bittard, in an attempt to retrieve the situation, spun the number 12 Kessel Racing Ferrari, which then got a little bit of a glance on the rear wing. But amazingly, the 12 car is still going very strongly. 71 tried assaulting it later on as well. The Rinaldi racing car of Stefan Aust, who spun on the approach to the reprofiled turn 10. Cool Racing's number 87 car in the hands of James Swetnam was always in the heat of the action. He could not hold back Dino Lunardi, though, in the Matra liveried EDEX Sport car. RHGP from pole position continued the chase to try and hunt down the race lead, and now that we've switched drivers in, is in a great spot to continue this race on. Slight error there from Julien Lemoine, could have been a lot worse, and also terrific car control from Christophe Lapierre in the number 10 Racing Spirit of Le Mans car, in between and threading the eye of the needle, but avoided contact amazingly. Very gravelly moment for David Drew in the 97, which did result in a safe rejoin in the end. So as we head into the second portion of the race, it's the 51 Ferrari of Alessandro Balzan that leads GT3, and Adrian David leading Arrace for RSGP in LMP3.
So under 40 minutes to go. Debuting team, RSGP, in a strong position, 3 seconds ahead of Tommy Foster, who is closing that gap. Rick Kern probably equidistant with the second place car in his Inter Europol car, so it's RSGP from High Class Racing and Inter Europol. Another instant here with one of the cars running wide off and through the gravel. It's another of the CD Sport cars. It's the number 11 car. Car a little way down the order in 16th with Frank Chapard. Just looking where the battles are behind that. Colin Noble and Wayne Boyd gradually making their way up through this field. They're currently running 7th and 8th, and two drivers we know that will battle to the very end and often beyond. It is a drive-through penalty confirmed now for the Iron Dames for pit lane speeding. It was on the way into the pits. We've got a car under investigation. That is car 28. MV2S Racing in 20th place for Kenzie Reese Beecroft for track limits. That almost inevitably will be a penalty.
Yeah, because it's resulted in not one but a few reports of breaching track limits, and once you get up to a certain amount, generally a penalty will need to be served.
Foster is catching the leader, and it's not traffic, and is catching the leader quickly.
2.5 seconds is the gap that Tommy Foster's trying to whittle down, and going the right way about it in the high-class racing car. Rick Kuhn in Inter Europol competitions, number 34, 4.4 seconds further back.
Also in GT3, David Fumanelli has caught Alex Acker now in the Stella Motorsport Audi. Riccardo Agostini had gone by, and in fact has just taken that position. Another dusty moment for another CD Sport car. 2 this time. You see there, the Kessel car from Italy is away. The dust was actually from the Audi as Alex Acker tried to hold his line and allow the LMP3 traffic through. It actually was, I apologise to Alex, it was him and the CD Sport car. They both ran wide. 36 minutes to go. 2.5 seconds the gap. That isn't done. But Tommy Foster is beginning to eke out a gap on Rick Kern. Watching David Drew with Marius Fossard in 6th place behind him, but catching both of them, Colin Noble and Wayne Boyd.
Yeah.
Senan Fielding has made it up into the top 10. He's gone by Dan Skustapole in the Breton Racing number 26, but that's a fine first start for the moment for the Czech team, and for that matter a fine first LMP start for Stella Motorsport in the mix here. Fielding showing great speed in the GT3. Here it is, the 42. Great speed in the GT3 class last year, and do wonder as Sylvain Guintoli gets this car underneath him through the season whether or not we might see these guys being a bigger part of the picture. But top 10 would be a fine result for them if they make it home here or better.
So perhaps unsurprisingly, Colin Noble and Wayne Boyd, I reckon they'll possibly be working as a bit of a team to home in on Marius Fossard. Although having said that, last time through. That's correct. Yeah, there's about a 2.4 second gap between the Scotsman and the Ulsterman. So Wayne Boyd may be delayed through a little bit of traffic on that occasion. It's stabilised around about the 2.5 second marker.
Best plank team. That strikes me as an in-house award.
Do you think?
I think.
They were measuring up the trophy, weren't they, there, or weighing it before the big presentation, perhaps happening this evening.
Foster still closing that gap. It's now down to 2 seconds. It was 4.4. Here comes the drive-through for the Iron Dames. Rather sadly, they'd already dropped to the back of the GT3 field, but they'd had a couple of whoopsies, not necessarily of their own making. This one, though, was rather self-inflicted.
And unfortunate for Karen Gaillard, she's the sort of innocent party. Unfortunately for Celia Martin, who breached the speed limit on the way in. Karen takes over, and one of the first jobs she has to do during her stint is take the drive-through that Celia had assessed to her. 3 more drivers warned, at least, of abusing track limits. They are Alex Acker in the Audi, Patrice Lafargue in the 17 EDEC car, and William Gosselin in the number 2 CD Sport prototype, the Ligier, that is running in 15th position for CD Sport, the Spanish outfit. So a couple of cars there at their home race, keen to do well. They're sadly just starting to fade a little bit now in 15th and 17th respectively.
Foster now 1.5 seconds back and absolutely closing in on the leader. It was, what is it, 4 or 5 laps ago, 4.4 seconds was that gap.
Here's Scott Malvern in the high-class racing prepared Porsche.
He's pushing on and catching Alex Acker.
6th position, so don't get this car confused with the Team Parker example last year, although it carries virtually the same livery. So that'll be a Nick Jones paint scheme, I assume, that he's brought through into high-class racing.
Same car, same squad, and
the fact that it's the same car, why change the livery, I suppose, as well. But that's a colour scheme I've associated mentally with Team Parker. Oh, off in the distance there is the CD Sport car. Now, is that the number 2 of William Gosselin, or is it Frank Chapard? Difficult to tell from that distance.
While you're watching that, I can tell you the pit stop for car 20, our second place car, just as he gets to around a second back from the leader, is under investigation.
So Chapard, it was, ran wide, yeah, so number 11 car, because William Gosselin's gone safely through sector 1, but about a 10-second delay for Frank Chapard in car 11 is the result of that. It's the car that he shares with Christian Short.
There is the rejoined Iron Dames car. That car sits in 30th place, 7th, and with quite a gap now to Scott Malvern, who is closing in Alex Acker. Louis Hamilton-Smith, by the way, is pitted in the P4 racing car, the 27 car. Drop down the order inevitably as a result.
So
it looks like it might be a drive-through. It is a drive-through. I didn't see a penalty being issued to Louis Hamilton-Smith.
I'll have a look for that.
Well, he's had a 23-second stop, and he's back into the pits now. Car 28 now, track limits. That is the MV2S car we said with Kenzie Reese. Beecroft. Tommy Foster is pushing on. This is now the battle for the lead, Johnny. As car 17 is the next under investigation. That is the EDEC Sport car. Having gone from 35th to 1st, now back down to 19th, and may well be dropping further back.
Yeah, the 27 car, Louis Hamilton-Smith, was under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. It then had a drive-through penalty assessed.
And has served
that. I assume has served it.
Yes, and now he's back on pit lane.
Did he speed during the drive-through?
No, this is a longer.
All right, so this is a genuine problem for the team, we perhaps think.
17, though, has got a drive-through for track limits. That is Patrice Lafargue, so will drop out of the top 20.
But the more worrying thing, Tommy Foster's been here before, as have we. He was on course for a very good result last year, I seem to remember, but then had a penalty
he did, right
that
at
was
the end.
lingering and
Yes.
was eventually turned into something like a 30-second penalty added on at the end. Well, he's only under investigation, and the car is only under investigation at this point.
It's a pit stop issue. Now that pit stop is shown as 2 minutes and 46 seconds. So whether or not there was something else around this, it is 0.8 of a second is the gap.
Going to have to wait to see what the eventual decision is there, because the investigation message only appeared on our screens 3 minutes or so ago. A little bit of a lock-up there into the first corner for David Drew again in the number 97 Cool Racing car.
That was a group in the company of the leading car in GT3. Alessandro Balzan is 6 seconds to the good from Fran Reder. So it is AF Corsa versus Kessel. So it's AF Kessel at the moment. Alex Acker still fending off Scott Malvern, but he's with the Audi now for the bragging rights of first non-Ferrari home.
So Adrian David, 0.8 of a second over Tommy Foster, but it remains to be seen how the high-class racing car is going to be treated by the race officials. Is there scope there for a potential penalty, which will certainly take the heat out of the situation for our race GP and could promote into Europol competition? 1 place to second. Adrian Klossmanil in the first of the 2 Cool Racing cars is next on the road. Cool Racing separated by 8 seconds or so. So David Drew's been off a couple of times, hasn't he, into the gravel trap, so that will have certainly delayed the Swiss.
It's been slightly messy, hasn't it? But still there in a good position. And David Drew has got Marius Fossard within a second. Colin Noble right behind. Rain Boyd dropping back a little off this. The Nielsen car 3 seconds back now. Had been under a second back from Colin Noble, but for whatever reason, Boyd is not yet in that fight. He's got 5 seconds over Alexander Coignot. And Senan Fielding is catching the M Racing car for 9th place.
Nice glimpse here of Alessandro Balzan, who's been going about his business very quietly indeed, but that's what he's tended to do over the years, and has a big trophy cabinet back at home as a result of that. Plenty of curb at turn 9, but he's building a little lead here of 5.3 seconds. Fran Reder, actually last time through, was marginally faster, but once you've built yourself a lead, you can start to manage that gap then, particularly through this traffic. So the AF Corsa run Ferrari number 51 in a strong position, despite their age-old foes, Kessel Racing, strangely flagged as Italian team on this weekend's entry list. They're definitely from Switzerland.
Absolutely from Switzerland.
But both cars Italian on the Michelin Le Mans Cup entry list and Swiss in tomorrow's ELMS race. I haven't got to the bottom of precisely why that is. I don't think it's an error.
They're as Swiss as a neat and tidy railway clock.
Too right. Actually, Balzan, I was about to say, or did say, minding his own business and keeping his lines neat and tidy. He did the sort of Beecher's Brook exit out of turn 5, almost as if he's in a horse race, leaping a hedge there. So that wasn't the ideal route for Balzan, but he's tidied up his lines once again now, and stays in front of Fran Reder and Riccardo Agostini as we head for the pit lane to see who Steph has managed to catch up with.
I am joined by Louis Hamilton-Smith, driver of the number 27 P4 Racing. Now, it's such a shame. We can see that it's ended in a retirement for you. Could you just tell us what happened with the car?
I've just been having a bit of an issue with the brakes all weekend, so a lot of time into some of the like T1, the pedals going long, and then into like T4, it'd just be on the basically brake on the rear, so a lot of inconsistency. So kind of just retire the car just for having an accident, really, for safety. It was just getting worse and worse. Yeah, we had it all weekend, so we haven't really got to the bottom of it, but it's the way it goes sometimes.
So you've been dealing with these issues all weekend. How has the pace felt otherwise from that?
Pardon?
How has the pace been otherwise, apart from these issues you've been dealing with?
I think it could have been a bit better because just with the braking issues, it's really unsettled the car. But I think after the braking phase, the car's really good. But it's just a shame couldn't show it.
Big shame. We'll see you in the next round. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Louis Hamilton-Smith chatting to Steph Wentworth, and whilst that was happening, a dramatic moment for the number 17 of Patrice Lafargue. Did he get a little too close, or was there contact? Diving through on his inside there, number 17 car, yes, then a touch wide after that into the gravel at turn 14. So didn't see a touch, but I think he was doing the gentlemanly thing and allowing enough space for those quicker cars to get through, and then just ran out of road on the exit.
Got onto the dirt and tried to turn in, and there was little and not quite none, but not enough. The 17 car will fall down the order. We've got 25 minutes to go, Johnny. That car will require assistance to get out there. Tommy Foster's right with the leader here.
Yeah. There may be various ways of dealing with Patrice Lafargue's car, so we will wait and see how that is dealt with in a moment or two.
This could be a lead change before we get into whatever that's going to happen there, because Tommy Foster comes into the yellow flag area, lifts off there to respect the yellow flags. He's got traffic ahead of the leader, too wide. It's an opportunity here for Foster to get stuck into this pair.
One more time. It's a double yellow flag at turn 14. You have to be ready to stop at any time.
Well, I think Gwen's point there was that these two are still...
He's done it. He's got it.
He's got it, but in the green flag area, and the problem was they didn't back out at all or show any inkling that they might do that. However,
that was a great move from Tommy Foster.
Safety car deployed.
Here's the safety car. That's what I was wondering. Would it be a full course yellow? Would it be a safety car? And this is the reaction down at High Class Racing.
And better still for Tommy Foster, he's got a car between him and the RHGP car.
Yeah.
Now we do know there is still, remember, this investigation into a pit stop for High Class Racing, but that was one heck of a pounce from Tommy Foster.
Terrific stuff.
He did it exactly right. He lifted, respected the double yellow flag. There may have been a suspicion from the leader that he didn't and then needed to cede some ground. That may have been part of it, but this is the...
how Patrice Lafargue ended up there.
Just drifted wide. There was absolutely no contact.
No,
just got to the dirt,
out in the marbles, and then you're not going to get it back from there. But the number 20 car is now being told by Gwen Boursier, the race director, that he needs to slow down. Well, getting very excited, no doubt, Tommy Foster having pulled off that manoeuvre. There was no overtaking, crucially, through turn 14 that I saw, and then the overlapping began again once the green flag was being displayed at the next marshal
100%.
point. But Gwen Bourcier's point was that in a double-waved yellow part of the racetrack, you have to be prepared to stop. Well, those boys were not going to stop at any stage of the scenario. But crucially, Tommy Foster had not begun his overtake too early.
I would recommend all team managers to read the regulations about any unlap or pass around.
So let's hope that they've read the regulations before the race began, because there may be some unravelling that needs to take place in a moment or two. But the safety car has picked up the new race leader, Tommy Foster.
Well, there should be no pass around in LMP3 because it has picked up the race leader. So pass around would only normally affect any car that has got its class leader in the row behind it. So whether or not that affects LMP3, we'll see when we see which is the first LMP3 car in this
GT3, you mean?
I do mean GT3, of course.
Yeah, but I think we've got away with it because it's picked up the LMP3 leader straight away.
No, 83 will get a pass around.
All right.
So the Iron Dames will get a pass around here, if indeed we get to that stage.
Yeah.
21 minutes remaining in this race. There should be time for that procedure to take place. Just looking what else we've got to look for here. So the order at the moment, Johnny, behind the safety car, it will be Tommy Foster, ahead of Adrian David, Rick Kern. So High Class Racing from RHGP and into Europol competition. That's the 1, 2, 3. Adrian Closemir and David Drew in the two Cool Racing cars, 4th and 5th, 87 and 97. Then Marius Fossard for Racing Spirit Le Mans in 6th in the number 10 car. Team Tour, Colin Noble in the 77. in 7th. Nielsen Racing's Wayne Boyd in the number 7 in 8th. Alexandre Coignot, 9th for M Racing in their 13 Ligier. And then the second of the Duquesnes in the top 10, Selin Fielding in the Stella Motorsport, 42. Daniel Kilvitz in the number 66 Rinaldi racing car has been flying, and this will help him. And we've got Paul Trojani in the ANS Motorsport car. Apologies, I've missed Sebastian Gravland in the Inter-Europol 43. 84 for ANS Motorsport and Paul Trojani. William Gosselin in the CD Sport number 2, and they've had some dramas, haven't they? CD Sport in this race, 14th. Hageli by T2 Racing's Duquesne, in the hands of Semibir in 15th place, the 67 car. Then the two Breton Racing cars together. Alex Nuas, a very late addition to this grid in the 62. That is the Art Car Rebellion Tribute car, just going through shot there. And right in his wheel tracks, the sister 26 car for Dan Skostapola. Felipe Fernandez-Laza in Rinaldi Racing 71, that's the Carrera liveried car, 18th. The 11 from CD Sport, Frank Chopard. Rounding out the top 20, it's the GG Classics, number 58 car, Hansa Fraser Ross, and then Kenzie Rice Beecroft, who's just been down pit lane for a penalty. The 28 car is 21st. Then we get to the GT3 cars, and they're in line astern, 22nd through 28th. AF Courses number 51 car, Alessandro Balsan. This will not help him because Fran Reda will start right on the boot lid of the 51 car in the Kessel Racing 74. So that war between the two Ferrari teams will continue, and it's another AF Corsa Kessel pairing as tramps away. He'd export Patrice Lafargue. He's, I don't think, that interested in getting back in that car. Riccardo Agostini in the 88 car that's had the 10-second penalty added, without which would be right in this fight, and has David Fumanelli in the number 12 Kessel Racing car that's had its fair share of dramas and more in 4th. Alex Acker is now in 5th place in the Stella Motorsports Audi, with Scott Malvern right behind in the number 18 High Class Racing Porsche, Karen Gaillard. We wait to see whether or not will be dealt a pass-by for the Iron Dames Lamborghini.
I think Gwen Borsier's thrown us a curveball there, because I didn't think there was a pass-around rule in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. They're relatively short races, and the danger is that we lose valuable racing time.
It would surprise me if they did, is the straight answer.
They didn't last year, and that's what made me think, because what his message to the driver, you know, make sure you've read the regulations.
Well, maybe he's telling them, because of course we do have a number of drivers here who do race in series where it does occur.
True.
So it's just as valid if there's not a pass around.
Yes.
Make sure you know there's not. But it is absolutely on the teams to understand the rule book for the race they've entered.
Yeah. But also very clear in the European Le Mans series when the pass around is taking place, and you get official permission on the radio to say yes, you can overtake the safety car. I think unfortunately for Karen Gaillard though, she had a difficult stint because of Celia Martin's penalty for speeding in the pit lane, had to come in to serve a drive-through because of that. And I think she's going to remain wedged between the safety car and the class leader behind her, who is Alessandro Balsan.
It's, by the way, Jens Reino Müller on the pit wall. He'll be anxiously waiting to find out what happens when we go green, and whether or not there's any result that they won't want to see from investigation into that pit stop. There are lapped cars in amongst this lead group, Johnny Palmer, and even before we went under safety car, this was a close-knit group, but look at it now. To give you an idea, looking here, before we get through to the 10th place car, there is the 10th place car. It's the grey-nosed, white-domed Duquesne. Replay here for, that is the 17, just running wide all by himself, embedded in the gravel, and not been a happy weekend for the Edic Sports effort. This fine liveried car does look great in those Matra colours. We'll see them tomorrow on the team's LMP2 car that was very much in the hunt for pole position today. That went to flying lap and a new qualifying lap record here. This circuit in its current configuration for United Autosports and Ben Hanley prior to Manchester.
But especially tonight, beers are on Ben, perhaps.
They'll
Maybe not the night before a motor race, but Sunday night if they get a good victory as well.
They'll be dancing in the streets tonight. They always are, to be honest with you.
Even more so
in Manchester,
especially if United Autosports can hit the ground well and truly running in the opening round of a 6-race season in the ELMS, with a victory tomorrow in the number 22 car. But there are so many cars in that grid. Very few places you can actually race an LMP2 these days, and the ELMS is the main place to do it. 14 cars in the top class, those that contain a silver driver, and then the bronze provide a further 8 as well. So
just the 22
huge entry of LMP2s, unbelievable. 22, as you say.
Well, 22 cars in any sports car race, any race, frankly, is a good grid, and that's what we've got in the 2 top classes.
Yeah. And then add to that a further 10 LMP3s, and I think it's 11 LMGT3 cars.
Yeah.
A grid fit to bursting, and the race to look forward to tomorrow. Another 4 hours of Barcelona. Not too long away from releasing this field again. The lights remain on the safety car, though, so we'll be going round for at least one more time.
Well, with the Ligier European Series, we've got the Porsche Carrera Cup France here as well. It's something like 120 to 130 sports and GT cars racing this weekend. Remarkable stuff.
Testament to the popularity, but also the end goal for so many who may be starting their ACO rules life off in, for instance, the Ligier European Series. Might spend a couple of seasons in that, JS2R and JSP4, and then move on, as Julien Henrion did after winning the title in the prototype element of Ligier European Series, into the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Well, the remarkable thing, of course, about the support paddock here with the Ligier European Series and these cars is everybody in for the full season in both those championships will get to race on the fabled full Le Mans circuit this season. Ligier European Series with a single sprint race in between the track sessions at Le Mans test day, the weekend before the race itself. And of course the Road to Le Mans, that's become a firm favourite with the fans trackside, with 2 shorter races in the days leading up to the Le Mans 24 Hours itself. In fact, the second race on race morning has become quite the livener, hasn't it?
There are a few fans around the Circuit de la Sarthe that need a bit more than a Michelin Le Mans Cup race as a livener, because Friday night can be rather heavy heading into race day, but I know what you mean. It gets everyone in the mood.
Oh my God, what's that?
Well, true. Need a few more racing laps very often from the Michelin Le Mans Cup, though, on Saturday morning. Everyone gets very, very excited that they're on the full Le Mans circuit, and we've had some big incidents through the years. And then when we do finally get to racing action, it's always intriguing. You don't get that much of a window to put in your mandatory stop either. Sometimes one shout at it, because the next time you'll be passing by will be too late. So yes, looking forward to rounds or races 3 and 4 of this year's championship there.
Would point out, by the way, we have so far not seen any results to investigations for 2 pit stops we believe that may well have been short. There is, though, notification that there's going to be an investigation into high-class racing.
We will do one more lap. We will do one more lap of safety car. One more lap.
So Grandboursier making it clear to the teams. It will be for the teams to tell their own drivers. This, what you're hearing, is what the teams are hearing. They then relay that into the drivers.
And important to get that information out to the drivers as quickly as possible, as well, as the 17 car continues to be moved to the safe side of the barrier. That's proving quite a difficult recovery.
It has. The problem is the most obvious way of doing it is to bring it across to the Parc Fermé area, but to do that you've got to cross the track, and that's not something that they ever want to have to do.
Yeah. But that's the reason why Gwen could be reasonably confident that we'll do one more safety car lap, because by the time they're back around, that Hiab or the Manitou, or whichever manufacturer is involved there, has recovered the number 17 car to its the safest location possible, and then Edex Sport will eventually get there, Ligier, a little bit later on in the piece.
So 10 minutes to go in this race against the timed 150, oh sorry, hour and 50 minutes. Remember, clock will expire, and then it's when the leader crosses the line thereafter. Sun beginning to cast shadows around this track. It's been a warm day. There'll be some blessed relief to people watching trackside with a little bit more shade, a bit more cool of the evening here.
Lights are out, so we're going to be racing for slightly under 10 minutes to go. And confirmation again from Gwen Boursier that the safety car will be peeling off just before turn 14. Tommy Foster then will be asked to dictate the pace, and he'll also get a signal probably from those at High Class Racing to say the green flag is being waved. So he's backing the field up a little bit here. Nobody else can start to overtake a course before we hit the line on the main straight.
No, he's got the more motorsport car behind him and ahead of the second place car, who's also going to have his mirrors full of the Inter-Europol competition 34. Green flag goes. Tommy Foster will go now.
Before the line.
And Tommy Foster has the opportunity from here to the line to make up that ground. Can't overtake, can't overtake, can't overtake, can overtake, but he's got to run from the Inter-Europol car to deal with as well, Johnny.
Adrian David, that did not go well for him because he has to get out of the throttle, and now all of a sudden Rick Kuhn in the Inter-Europol competition car has the better momentum, but it was actually a situation recovered well by the young Frenchman. David does retain second place. He can't do a great deal about Tommy Foster disappearing into the distance, though, and quite literally into the sunset for the High Class Racing race leader, number 20.
Watch for any changes behind. There's a drive-through penalty, meanwhile, been called for the number 62 car. That's a battle there between the 7 and the 77. That is Wayne Boyd trying to get onto terms with his old adversary, Colin Noble. How many times have we seen them go wheel to wheel, but never, I don't think, with Wayne aboard a Nielsen racing car.
Also pretty close between the CD Sports machine there in the mid-pack and
car at the moment.
Fraser Ross. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Not Chapard and Ross together. Maybe it is the recovering CD Sport car.
No, they're back. They're further back now. Both of them have had off-track moments, so they're getting out the way there.
Down the inside goes the number 97 of David Drew. He's still running in 5th position, ahead of the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car for Marius Fossard. Then we've got lapped cars, so Colin Noble 1.7 seconds adrift.
He's got the more motorsport car between him and the Racing Spirit Le Mans car. It's not been a great restart there from the Team Tour car. Has dropped off the back of the cars that he was battling with going into this period. Just looking there to see exactly what's going on with Melvin. Still has not managed to get by Alex Acker.
Keeping also a keen eye on what's happening for second position in GT3. Fran Reder in the Kessel Racing number 74. Right. Keeping a watchful eye on the red and yellow Ferrari number 88 of Riccardo Agostini, who takes a slightly different line into turn 1.
2 lots of 3 wide there, coming into a place where that was not going to work, but they've kept it neat and tidy. Look at this, though, the 88 car with mirrors full of the number 12 of David Fumanelli. Fran Rueda has made his way past the MV2S car and trying to get onto terms with the race leader in GT3, Alessandro Balzan. This is going to go to the flag. Stop and go infringement under investigation for car 26.
And the 26 is Scotch de Pola in the Brett Racing car, so not troubling the leaders, but down in 17th. So that's a potential infringement that may well follow on. We've still not heard about Tommy Foster and a potential penalty for High Class Racing, which might bite after the flag if they're still investigating it. Big cloud of dust at the end of the straight at turn 10, maybe indicative of someone falling off briefly into the gravel trap. 88 still ahead of 12, so David Fuminelli trying to look past Agostini. Alex Acker can't be too far away either in the Audi. He's about a second and a half back. There he was, just working his way through shot out of turn number 11 as the Ferraris think about going side by side. Fuminelli to the high line but can't get through there.
Wayne Boyd's had an issue. He's dropped down to 10th place. Senan Fielding too drops to 11th. So there's been a reshuffle behind Colin Noble, who's now got Alexander Quagno, but 5 seconds back. So whatever's happened in that little pack, it's affected Wayne Boyd's charge. Tommy Foster, Adrian David, Rick Kern, Adrian Closemil, David Drew, Marius Fossard, Colin Noble, Alexander Quagno, Daniel Kielwitz, and Wayne Boyd top 10. And there's the 71 car going around, the Rinaldi Racing car. That car a little way back.
Yeah, had some difficulties earlier on as well. That's Felipe Fernandez Laza in the 71. So an unusual error, if indeed it was, might have been contact. The Hegerli Duquesne looking to get a lap back on the Ferrari that runs second for Fran Raider.
Fran Raider's not given this up, you know.
Certainly not. 0.6 of a second away, 0.5 of a second from Balzan.
And they're catching the Lamborghini, which could be interesting in terms of traffic here.
So, to remind you, there was no wave by under the safety car, as per the regulations. That's what's put the Lamborghini a long, long way back now. And Balzan will have a clean run at it, I think, although Karen Gaillard needing to be wary that the class leader wanted to get past in the form of number 51, and that's an important move from Alessandra Balzan, because not straight away can Fran Raider get through, and he's not actually in a position to do so on Gaillard's Lamborghini. So that will buy crucial time back again for Alessandra Balzan.
Further potential dramas for top 10 car 13. That is the M Racing car under investigation for track limits. 7th place car for Alexander Quagno. Could that give Daniel Kielwitz and Wayne Boyd and Senan Fielding another position and more points? Tommy Foster, though, is driving away from Adrian David at this point. 3 minutes and 20 seconds to go.
Rick Kuhn in the Inter-Europol competition car ahead of Adrian Klossmanil. And Klossmanil, I think, only 17 years old. So he will be learning very quickly indeed in this incredibly busy race. Monitoring which cars near to you are the ones that are relevant and need to be targeted to improve your track position. Still no change for third in GT3, Agostini leading Fuminelli.
That was the 10 car running slowly for Marius Fossard,
oh
dropping
dear,
back.
Yes. So the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car is losing ground.
That was well up in the order, wasn't it? There was a head of Noble, and that has dropped out of the top 10. That car is slowing very badly. Just looking to see whether or not there is any visual clue.
Well, it's been slow since the start of the lap for Marius Fossard.
Still this pair, the Stella Audi and the high-class Porsche, battling away for that position, 5th place. Alex Acker holding off Scott Malvern, doing a great job of it.
In fact, Fossard's problem in the number 10 hit on the previous lap, and it's extended into this one as well. So that's been a long-term problem for Racing Spirit of Le Mans.
It's a yellow at the turn 9 exit. I think that is for either a slow or a stopped number 10.
Yeah, last time we checked, it was over to driver's right. So white flags being displayed initially, and now into yellows because of the stopped car. The race leader's about to arrive on the scene. Tommy Foster leading by 4.5 seconds.
Now, no clue what the issue might be that we may or may not hear around what happened on pit lane for high-class racing, but do want to take a moment to mark what a run from Tommy Foster, and in particular, Johnny, the manner of him taking that lead. Heads-up stuff, respected the flag, then went for it when the car went green. There is the number 10 car, driver's door open, so we will go to the flag, I'm sure. It is in a place where there is a sight line, and then has driven away when this race has gone back to green.
It's been an excellent effort, particularly from Tommy Foster, but the foundations were laid by Jens Moller, who we've seen plenty of times celebrating, particularly that move by Tommy Foster heading into the safety car period. Timed it to perfection to jump ahead of Adrian David, and then the restart coming out of the safety car was terrific from Tommy Foster to now establish this 5.5 second advantage. 5.7 it creeps out to now, back to Adrian David.
Last lap now for the race leader.
And still set to potentially change is the final step on the podium between inter-Europol competition for Rick Kuhn, and the opening stint was done by Alexander Bukantsov, versus the chasing Cool Racing car, taking a championship in LMP3 last year, remember.
Right together, this pair. And these two teams, Johnny, have battled over the last couple of 3 seasons, both in the Michelin Le Mans Cup and in the European Le Mans Series. They've become some of the cornerstones of LMP3 racing in the European scene. Tommy Foster, though, driving away here, 5.9 seconds to the good now, and untroubled from the RSGP Duquesne that looked like it was going to romp it just, what, 20-30 minutes ago?
The difficulty for those involved in traffic like David Drew and Colin Noble and Daniel Kalvitz is that they just don't have the clear air to be able to post the 1:38 that Tommy Foster is able to do. Only about half a second away from his best, and Tommy Foster coming down the hill into turn 14 then, with the clock now at 0. Checkered flag being displayed for Tommy Foster of High Class Racing. Jens Moller taking victory as well, and that is Jens' reaction to it. Yes, he screams. Still, the slight rain cloud above their heads about this penalty that we don't know either way which way that's going. It's been pinged for something, but the investigation continues well after the race finish. Adrian David for RSGP rescue the situation from pole position. They eventually finished second in the car shared with Fabien Michel, and in third position it is into Europol competition, who hang on over Cool Racing. 2 cars from Cool, in fact, right on their tail, but Rick Kuhn gets the 34 car home safely with Alexander Bukantsov.
Here comes Alessandro Balsam to bring home the number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari. It's going to be a win for the 51 from the 74 from Kessel Racing. Frank Ryder crosses the line, and it will be a Ferrari 1-2-3 with Riccardo Agostini. We'll see what happens behind them, and indeed the stellar Audi still stays ahead of the high-class Porsche. What a day, though, for high-class racing from Denmark, locally based, as we said, here in Barcelona, but proudly Danish-flagged their debut as a own brand LMP3 team in the European Le Mans Series.
Yeah, and bringing the same livery of jackets with them that they ran so many occasions, well, from the Danish crew at least, last year for GMB Motorsport. So you might recognise the mascot racewear sponsor on Jens Moller's jacket, but it's High Class Racing that prepare that LMP3 car. And they're bringing the same sort of form as we saw in the Honda NSX camp last year from the Michelin Le Mans Cup. So actually no connection between the two teams other than the Danish mascot sponsor. But they brought good luck to High Class Racing, it seems. And a terrific driving style from Tommy Foster as well, as the sun starts to glare and make that ambient light very golden indeed. I do think that was a problem, certainly as they entered turn 10 and through turn 11, as the sun got lower and lower in the sky, but it's Tommy Foster that mastered it.
First, at least, of the penalties that's been assessed, Alexandre Coignot has been assessed a drive-through penalty converted to 30 seconds. That drops the M Racing car to 16th place. That means that, let me look, that is Wayne Boyd up into 8th. I think he was the first car behind that. Stella Motorsports, Senan Fielding up into 9th place, and into Europol's 43 into 10th place. Well, it had its moments, it had its incidents, but what it didn't have, Johnny, is some of the unmitigated carnage that on occasion we've seen.
The odd spin here and there, and then unfortunately with cars stranded in the middle of the track, on the odd occasion they were collected, but no, we haven't had the big incidents that particularly overshadowed the equivalent race last year. There's Jens Moller getting to the side of the High Class Racing LMP3 car, and an immediate handshake to Tommy Foster, not least for how he pulled off that overtake. just after a double waved yellow section, and then we went straight into a safety car, but only after Tommy Foster had timed his overtake to perfection on Adrian David. And then the quirk of the safety car actually put an LMP3 car between Foster and David, and he got the better of the starts between the two.
Jens Moller, his racing CV goes all the way back. Touring cars as well as GT and sports cars, including the Lister Storm LMP back in the day.
Nice.
20 years ago. And that's what it means. He's as delighted today as he would have been if this had happened back in those days. Tommy Foster will be correctly delighted. He's had his ups and downs in recent years.
Immediately congratulated by the engineers from High Class Racing, and Alessandro Balsan, who we mentioned an awful lot about during the race, sharing with Michael Kurzajewski. It was Kurzajewski who did the hard work earlier today to bag pole position for this car, and it was a last-ditch affair as well to hustle that potential accolade away from Custodio Toledo. And Toledo having to start from second position, their 88 car home in only third position, along with Riccardo Agostini. So they've translated the pole into a win, and that's 25 points quickly on the board in the early phase of the season.
Great stuff, and a good battle at GT. Late safety car closed things up again, and that was not a foregone conclusion. Had to fight for that, Alessandro Balsan, and he can be fighty.
I think he probably has been fightier in the past. He just needed to keep things neat and tidy, and it was getting a little close for comfort when Fran Reder upped the pace. But then he managed to put a bit of traffic between the rear of his Ferrari and Reder's 296.
He's in great shape, you know. Alessandro Balsan, he's lost quite a bit of weight in the last year or so. The last time I saw him, he was not exactly chunky in the Graham Goodwin sense, but certainly was not in the best shape I've seen him. But he looks in great shape, clearly ready for this season, and he's correctly delighted. Amato Ferrari there in the centre, embracing Alessandro. Good to see him here. The AF behind AF Corsa, piercing blue eyes of Amato.
Plenty of conversation in Italian there as well. Alessandro Balsan, American, but fluent clearly with a name like that in Italiano as well.
Well, a good start, I think, for the 2024 Michelin Le Mans Cup. Johnny?
It's intriguing because I don't think the championship has necessarily revealed everyone that can win races just yet. So what we like is a good spread of varying results through the first few races, and it's always interesting for me to observe races 1 and 2 because they're the precursors to the road to Le Mans, and you get an idea of the pattern of play. We should get quite a lot of extra cars for Road to Le Mans as well, though. So those particular one-hour races are going to be very, very busy once we get to June. Lots to look back on after an hour and 50 minutes of competition. Let's get some interviews as well.
By the winners of the race. Huge congratulations to the drivers of the number 20 High Class Racing. Let's start with you, Jens. Both of you actually back on the podium in the Le Mans Cup. It must feel absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really fantastic. I'm now in LMP3, my first race. Fantastic, and what a job the team have done. Everybody, and mega stint from Tommy. He just overtook P1 just in the right moment. It's fantastic, really. Really well done for the whole team, and especially for Tommy. Brilliant.
Yeah, and we have to talk about that overtake. It was just so well timed. Did you know at that moment that, you know, that was the job done?
I had a good feeling because I was struggling to overtake the car, so I know it's super hard to overtake here. So I saw the traffic coming in, and I used my experience and made the most of it and got it just in time.
Perfect. Well, enjoy the celebrations. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I think Jens Moller must be one of the very few, if not the only man. I'm trying to think of anybody who's won in both classes in the Michelin Le Mans Club.
When we got underway then at 10 to 6 this evening, it threw us into a frenetic start with the two Virage cars very nearly colliding as a peculiar line was taken by Jamie Falvey. Unfortunately, we were only to enjoy Falvey's run at the head of the order for a few laps before problems struck. watch as a couple of cars dropped their right side wheels into the gravel trap on the exit of turn 1 and going for the full rotation. Julien Lemoine in the 84 car, that was to avoid Georgios Kolovos attempting to rejoin from the gravel trap, and all sorts of different lines being utilised there. An early spin for Celia Martin in the Lamborghini Huracan for the Iron Dames, the number 83 car. And then the battle commenced towards the sharp end of the field. This was Rinaldi Racing tagging the rear of Moore Motorsport and pitching that car into the gravel. And Mark van der Schnell did his best to get the car out of the gravel as quickly as possible, but unfortunately just buried the rear wheels even further. Down the inside for Oscar Bitar doing battle, and that would not be the only time that our attention was drawn to the Oscar Bitar car, including here as he left the road and into the gravel trap. A possible skirmish with the Inter-Europol competition car at the time, and that would force us into an early safety car. But interestingly, nobody in the key running decided to pit and get a free pit stop effectively, because that was then awkward on the driving time. Each driver needed to do a minimum of 45 minutes, and the safety car arriving on the scene a little too early for that. Dino Lunardi, who'd been plugged into the 17 car by virtue of the fact that the 17 caused a red flag in the qualifying earlier on today, so regulations stipulate that Lunardi had to start, and he was forcing his way up the order, got as high as 5th, I seem to remember, possibly higher up than that, before we then hit the pit stop window itself. Meanwhile, battling continued between Racing Spirit of Le Mans' number 10 car and then Patrice Lafargue, who'd taken charge of the Matra liveried Edex Sport car. He would run out of road in doing the gentlemanly thing and gifting the inside line, but confirmation that for the second time in the race the safety car was deployed in order to retrieve Patrice Lafargue's car. And at that moment, that's when Tommy Foster got ahead of Adrian David for the race lead, and it wouldn't in the end be usurped, because Tommy Foster just continued to build the advantage coming out of the safety car. Great side-by-side action between Ricardo Agostini and David Fuminelli for 3rd and 4th in the GT3 category, but the number 20 of Tommy Foster, after a stellar drive, gets the checkered flag together with Jens Moller after his opening 45 minutes or so. That was the reaction of the Dane, and in the 51 GT3 Ferrari, it was after a great stint from Matthew Kurzajewski. He did the hard work to put the car on pole position earlier on today, and Alessandra Balsan brought it to the finish for victory for AF Corsa in the first race of the season in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. And the podium is already well underway with the presentations about to take place. So finishing in 3rd position, car 34, Inter-Europol competition for Alexander Bukantsov and Rick Kuhn. 2nd place to the number 85 RHGP combo of Fabien Michel, who started, and Adrian David in 2nd. But the win, and a first win for high-class racing in the LMP3 category, will go to car 20 for Jens Moller and Tommy Foster. It'll be the national anthem of Denmark, we hear.
I think it goes on a bit longer than that normally.
Quite possibly, but, yeah. That's the hard stop version.
Yeah, we have got used to hearing that anthem, of course, in the GT3 class in recent years with GMB Motorsports and their Hondas. Well, I'm afraid that team and that programme gone. That's going to be our Michelin representative handing over trophies to our Michelin Le Mans Cup podium sitters. Rightly delighted, the high-class racing crew. The RHGP guys will be a bit disappointed. Looked like they had that, didn't it? It just fell away at the end with great run to the front from Tommy Foster. And the way that second half of the race evolved helped him but he had to make the move, and then he executed. Caught the lead car, executed beautifully, and then drove away.
And as he said, having raced at this track before and having a number of seasons of experience now in LMP3s, realised that the opportunity to overtake slim and far between, so you've got to pounce where possible and where it's most likely to happen. Still waiting for champagne, aren't they, after a thirsty day's work, but the champagne yet to arrive on the podium. So
that's Milton Jakobsen and Paul Chatin.
Oh yeah, getting some action in late on in the day.
Alpine driver and future Peugeot hypercar factory driver.
So confirmation of the results. They will get champagne later on, I hope. 58 laps completed by high-class racing, and winning by 7.3 seconds over the RACE GP duo. Then into Europole competition ahead of two cool racing cars finished by Adrien Closmenil and David Drew. Team Tour make the top 6 for Colin Noble and Auden Gudmundsson ahead of Rinaldi Racing's Daniel Kylvitz. And Wayne Boyd, who lost a bit of ground actually to Kylvitz in the closing stages, getting the Nielsen car into 8th spot. GT3 is won by AF Corsa, and the two that we will see on the podium very shortly of Matthew Kurzajewski and Alessandro Balzan, winning from Fran Reda in the 74 Kessel Racing Ferrari. Andrew Gilbert sharing that car, the Emirati registered driver, and then Riccardo Agostini and David Fuminelli having a stonking fight. Early championship points, provisional at this stage, of course, but it's likely the high-class racing will leave Barcelona with 25 points to the names of Jens Moller and Tommy Foster ahead of Fabian Michel and Adrian David. Podium number 2 is for the GT3 finishers, and first of all to the third step of the podium in car number 88. It's Riccardo Agostini and Custodio Toledo. Second position going the way of Kessel Racing for Fran Reda in the number 74 and Andrew Gilbert. But it's a win for AF Corsa's number 51 after the pole was set by Kurzajewski, Matthew Kurzajewski and Alessandro Balzan to the top step of the podium. And naturally with the Ferrari, it will be the national anthem of Italy that we hear. Also, the chief engineer from the car will join them on the top step of the podium, and the celebrations very shortly will begin at AF Corsa. Well done to AF Corsa and all behind that project. Alessandro Balzan driving brilliantly, and Graham Goodwin reckoning even the waistband is looking slightly more healthy ahead of the 2024
I
season.
think he looks in great shape.
He does.
He raced well, he looks in great shape, he looks happy, and it's great to see him back. It really is.
And it seems like Matthew Kurzajewski will be a good fit alongside his fellow American. As they no doubt are challenging and were challenging even before the start of the season the title this year. Well, it started in the perfect way at the beginning of the 2024 season. I really like the podium here at Barcelona, a copy of the racetrack diagram effectively. You stand on top of that as you stand, there it is, a good example of it on the podium itself. Track map beneath you. Still no sign of any champagne. Well, some of these drivers... that's the reason, of course, yes.
Of course.
Because of the Sommer affair, of course, of the whole week, actually.
The reason why.
Yes, that now makes complete sense. Apologies, we hadn't quite twigged that at the time. Jens Moller desperate for a slurp, but quite understandably, it will happen later and at a more appropriate moment of the weekend. AF Corsa take 26 points because, of course, they took pole position as well as the race win, with Kessel Racing in second ahead of the second of the AF Corsa Ferraris. Alessandro Balzan and Matthew Kurzajewski will leave Barcelona as the championship leaders ahead of Andrew Gilbert and Fran Reda, with Custodio Toledo and Riccardo Agostini getting 15 points for their podium finish. Celia Martin and Karen Gaillard did get to the checkered flag in their number 63 for, Lamborghini, number 83 Lamborghini, so they will take 6 points, and we can get some reaction now from the GT3 part of the race with Steph Wentworth.
I am joined by the winners of GT3. A huge congratulations to the number 51A, of course. Matthew, let's start with you. You've got to start it well. On pole position, must have felt brilliant.
Yeah, I had a good start. The beginning was a bit interesting, to say the least, but the car was fantastic. The AF guys did great. The car is fantastic all race. And yeah, so first race here, hopefully they're all like this. I don't know, we'll see.
Well, it seems like this is a blossoming team partnership. Alessandro, you continued and you managed to convert that pole position into the victory.
Yeah, Matt did an amazing job on his stint, gave me the car with a very nice gap, so everything looked pretty good, until the very last safety car. I was like, oh wow, this is going to be wild, and it was pretty wild. I think it was a very good race to watch on TV. Not so fun in the car, I had some rough battle with the LMP3, but it's a great first hour race in the GT3 car. And it's a great start. We are loving Europe and this very different type of racing, so it's a good start. It's a long season, but it's a good start.
Excellent. Well, enjoy the celebrations. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alessandro Balsan speaking latterly, and good to catch up with Matthew Keselowski as well. Big grins all around, as you might expect, but I think rather the hypothetical question there from Matthew Keselowski: can we continue this through the season? One victory doesn't necessarily mean a summer in terms of swallows, and they're going to be hard up against it through the rest of the season.
Well, they're a convincing package, aren't they? But it's a good start to the Michelin Le Mans Cup season after a frankly terrible start in the paddock earlier this week. And we remember Gerhard with fondness and with absolute respect, but a good race to commemorate him and to celebrate the start of the season. It's an hour and 50 minutes done. It's 4 hours to come tomorrow, Johnny Palmer, with the European Le Mans Series. Please join us for that, because that is going to be awesome. But thanks for your efforts, for Steph down in pit lane.
And to you as well, Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com. Yes, a 4-hour race to look forward to tomorrow. We'll have about 20 minutes worth of build-up. We begin at 11:30 with the race. So on air local time, Central European Summer Time, at 10 past 11 for all the build-up and a long look through what is a fit-to-bursting grid. The opening round of the European Le Mans Series. But for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, we now look ahead to Le Castellet in about 3 weeks' time. Join us there for round 2 of this amazing championship. Bye for now.